Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto fall in love with vampire daughters. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Hyuga Hinata is one of the most hardworking students in her high school, the top academic female student for the past 2 years. She will one day inherit the Hyuga Tech, a company that creates new phones for the growing population and is very popular in the Asian region of the world. Hinata had long, dark blue hair with pale eyes of the shade of lavender, a very pretty girl. Most may say, others would say she would be different, unique, or one of a kind. She's a very sweet 17-year-old girl, who never talks back to anyone who tried to tease her. Everyone knows her family to be strict and demands order, but Hinata is so much more passive and carefree when it comes to taking charge of anything. Unfortunately, Hinata does not possess many friends, or communicates with anyone at the lunch tables. Yes, Hyuga Hinata is a popular girl, but is an outcast in school. Hinata opened her locker to gently place in her geology textbook next to her notebooks that are color-coded for her classes. She always made sure she had things in order because she tends to misplace things very easily without proper instructions on how to find it all by herself. "Did you order the next book?" A female voice reached Hinata's ears from behind. "Hi, I have to wait 2 weeks for it to arrive at the store. I can hardly wait for it." Another female voice squealed as she pulled out her mathematics textbook and closed her locker loudly. "Oi, Hyuga-chan, are you reading this series, too?" Hinata looked at the book one of the girls was holding, noticing the popular font and cover design that left a clear answer of what it was. Another vampire love story. Hinata shook her head with a smile. "I am afraid I haven't read it. I have been very busy lately." Of course, she knew she was giving the lie she has used for years now, afraid of admitting that she had no interest at all in it. "Oh, but you must find time to read it. The vampire boy in here is just to die for." The redhead flipped her hair with starry eyes. "It says his eyes are like looking into heaven. TCH, the werewolf is totally better. He's mysterious for the main character and you could tell that he wants her to be safe." The blonde companion whined while cuddling her cheeks. "Dogs are stinky," was the redhead's reply. "Take that back, you bloodsucker lover." Hinata just bowed her head before the battle between the two classmates became deadly, leaving them behind to enter her math class. Hinata settled in her desk, which stood in the back, where she sat alone without a seatmate. She didn't mind it. She really wasn't the best at starting conversations or helping people out with their math problem, being that she was the best in her class, so she simply settles herself out of people's way and pay attention to the whiteboard and the teacher's words. The bell went off to signal the start of next period. She opened her notebook and began to doodle butterflies with her favorite purple inked pen, giving the wings adorable details of hearts and bubbles when the young teacher called the class into order. XXX. Class was into the deep conversation about a heavy equation and a loud knock interrupted the teacher's speech about using the long formula, which Hinata solved less than 5 minutes just by using her head. The door opened to show that an office woman sticking her head in. "Excuse me, but your new students got lost trying to find you in the other building." Her cheeky smile and faint blush let Hinata know that this particular office lady, who is well into her 20s, has a fling for the math teacher, who is around the same age. "Ah, it's all right," the teacher scratched his neck, tugging the tie a little. "Let them in and I'll take them out of your hair." The door increased to open as 3 figures strolled in to cause silent gasps in the room. Hinata stopped shading in her butterfly to see what the fuss was, to blink in surprise at the sight she encountered in the back of the classroom alone. The first one to walk in was a young man with seductive features. Short, spiky hair that stuck behind him with black eyes to match under his bangs. He was fairly tall and skinny, having long legs to make him move fluidly into the room. The faint echo of the girls in the classroom swooning over the first glimpse of the young man as his blank face was nowhere looking into anyone's eyes, but faced the floor. He had a perfectly sculpted face, a perfect nose to blend in so nicely with his model-like lips. If Hinata didn't know any better, she would have, though the young man was a model for an expensive clothing line. The next figure was a girl. She had very green eyes that sparkled with curiosity and joy as she walked adoringly into the room with her hands behind her back. Her long legs seemed to move in a slow motion as she settled to stand next to the black-haired boy. The most odd thing Hinata would point out straight away was her pink hair that was short and wavy around her cheekbones, giving shape to her heart-shaped face and light pink lips. She had slightly more color than the first boy, but she still exposed a pale skin tone. She was slightly skinny, small curves that seemed to fit well with her small chest and a smaller height compared to the boy, who Hinata noted was as tall as their teacher. She wore a smile that distracted many of Hinata's classmates in an instant. A voice of a male seemed to come from outside the door as the office assistant was receiving a thank you. "Thanks a lot, lady. Kurenai, right? We could have sworn the building was the right one." The voice was very energetic and loud, causing the dark boy to twitch once under his left eye and the pink-haired girl to offer him a small nudge and a whisper of something Hinata couldn't pick up. A blonde boy with tanned skin came jumping into the classroom as the door was shut behind him. A toothy smile that revealed white, shiny teeth as his whiskered cheeks bubbled as he waved to the teacher. "Sorry, mister." The teacher waved his hand. "It's nothing. New students get lost all the time," he said with ease as he looked at his class list to check of 3 names with a blue pen. "Why don't you start with your name and something you like for the class to get to know you? It's sorta of a tradition I have for this class." The teacher smiled warmly to the dark-haired boy first, as if giving him encouragement to go first. The guy looked up from the ground to meet every single set of eyes in the class as he spoke in a cool tone of no interest. "Uchiha Sasuke. Something you like, Uchiha-san?" The teacher beckoned politely. Nothing." Hinata jumped a bit in her chair as every girl in the class, kya, ed with hearts in their eyes as Sasuke looked back down with no interest as before. "He's too cool to like anything." A girl screeched with her hand over her heart. "I think I'm in love." The girl Hinata sat behind whispered while her boyfriend of 2 years popped a vein in his temple. "Alright, how about you, miss?" The teacher gulped as he changed gazes to green orbs. The pink-haired girl replied to the teacher with a beautiful smile, making him flush a little, as she spoke with a perfect voice of a singer. "My name is Uzumaki Sakura, and I enjoy learning about medical courses," she said with a glittering twinkle in her eye. "I hope to become a doctor one day and help out in developing countries." She tucked a pink lock behind her ear as Sasuke made a grunt for her attention. "Oh yes, I am also engaged to Sasuke-kun as well. He wished for me to mention that." "No." The girls cursed with their heart eyes bursting into flames, making Hinata giggle a little to herself. "Sure. Someone has to break the hearts of the new heartthrob of the school, but not this quickly." The teacher didn't even get the chance to motion for the blonde's turn as he thrust up a fist and a laugh. "Name's Uzumaki Naruto, everybody. Sakura-chan is my sister and I love ramen, martial arts, sleeping, video games and so many other things. Dat bayo." He was going to continue with his introduction speech as Sakura, as fragile as she seems, smacked the back of Naruto's skull, causing the tanned teen to let out a cry in pain. "OWW. Sakura-chan, that hurts, dat bayo." The class roared with laughter as the teacher let a sweat drop appear on his head. "Well, thank you for your names, you 3. I have your seating plans sorted out already." He peered at another sheet of paper as he pointed to an empty table in the middle of the classroom. "Uchiha-san, Uzumaki-san, if I may call you Sakura? You will be seated there together." He let the two walk down the aisle with their peers examining every little detail they could look at as Sasuke pulled out a chair for Sakura before he took his own seat and kept silent the whole time. "Uzumaki-san, you will be sitting next to Hyuga-san in the back. Raise your hand, Hyuga-san." "Huh?" Hinata's face flushed as she met the blonde's blue eyes, causing Hinata's heart to hit her ribcage as she raised a shaking hand while stuttering. "HHH here." The teacher smiled at the blonde before saying his last conversation line. "You may call me Asuma-sensei, by the way. I don't think schedules at the middle of the year doesn't state the name." Naruto bowed his head to the teacher and practically jumped his way to the back of the room, hopping over books and limbs of the classmates' legs to kick himself back onto the seat and rest his feet on the table. He let his hands rest behind his head as he winked at Hinata friendly-like. "Heya, you can call me Naruto. Uzumaki makes me feel like a stranger." Hinata didn't say anything but kept her gaze down while the teacher went back to talking. She stumbled her purple pen in her fingers as she tried to start a new doodle of another butterfly with swirls within its wings. She could feel the presence of Naruto's eyes on her as he made noises of his chair scooting closer to look at her paper. "Gee, that's a very good drawing," Naruto said politely, making Hinata gulp thickly with her nerves going out of whack. Your name is Hinata, right? You're good at drawing, Hinata. Hinata nodded fast. Arigato, and Naruto-kun. Naruto's head tilted to the side, slowly reaching his index finger to gently poke her shoulder. Nay, you don't have to be scared with me, Hinata. I'm a good boy. He tugged her uniform sleeve to have her look at his dashing smile. I want to be friends with you, Datbeo. She could feel her cheeks growing to a deeper shade of red as she tried to force out a smile, nodding slowly as she turned her head back to watch the teacher. Although, it was a difficult task with Naruto asking her to keep drawing her butterfly. Class ended after another half hour, the bell signaling the students to have their social break to chat, eat their lunch, and study for the last minute. The students in Hinata's math class swarmed out quickly, noting that Naruto hasn't even risen from his chair as his eyes were glued to Hinata's purple doodles. Anyo. Hinata mumbled shyly. Nay? Naruto's blue eyes looked up. What's wrong, Hinata? See, class is over now, Naruto-kun. The blonde sat up in his chair, having a confused look before giving himself a facepalm on his forehead. Right, that's the bell for lunch, isn't it? Haha, I wouldn't have known if I wasn't paying attention. Wait, I wasn't paying attention. He stood up from his chair to stare a little frightened. Out of curiosity, Hinata followed his gaze to see Sakura and Sasuke standing by their desk, facing them. Sorry guys. I was just not paying attention, Sasuke muttered coldly. You're such a doby. I'm not. I was just watching Hinata draw in her notebook. Naruto defended himself weakly, waving his hand at Hinata's paper she still had out in plain sight. She was paying attention as well as drawing, Naruto, Sakura said. It is called multitasking, which is something you don't possess very well. Sakura's green eyes lingered to Hinata's pale ones, giving her a kind smile as she walked over and stuck out her small hand. It's nice to meet you, Hinata-chan. Please, excuse my brother's stupidity and if he bothered you in any way from learning. Oh, and no. He was no trouble at all, Uzu. Please call me Sakura, she smiled bigger. Sakura-chan. And Naruto-kun was no trouble, she continued. Actually, Ichi was fun to be around. She gave Naruto's sister a small smile. See? I'm behaving. Naruto cried out as scratched his head. You're still a doby, Sasuke said flatly, wrapping an arm around Sakura's waist. Hinata noticed that she didn't see him make his way over here. We're going for lunch. Can Hinata-chan come, too? Sakura asked with loving eyes as she glanced up to him. She seems very nice. I don't want to be a bother. Hinata held her hands up to protest, but Sakura's giggle made her silent. What bother would it be to have you join us for lunch? Sakura giggled cutely, making Hinata blush shyly. Unless you have other plans, I would like to get to know you. You seem like a very polite and fun person. Yeah. Naruto nodded quickly, in an excited stance to face the Hyuga heiress. Come on, Hinata, please? I know Teme looks like a scary guy, but he's actually a poo. He got Sakura's fist to land perfectly on top of his head, making another cry of pain. That hurt, Sakura-chan. Don't call Sasuke-kun mean names, Naruto. Sakura said calmly as she snuggled her way into Sasuke's waiting arms, having him smirk at the blonde in victory. Your brother-in-law is a very brave man in my life. Peefed, whatever, Naruto choked as he looked at Hinata with pleading eyes. So, what you say, Hinata? You could show us around the school, if you want. We're pretty much new to town and we don't know anybody. You can be our first friend ever. The word, friend, echoed in Hinata's mind thoughtfully and invitingly. She enjoyed having Naruto as a seatmate, and she already liked Sakura's warm presence. She didn't know what caused her to reply in such a way, it just happened. Okay, what is she doing? Hinata was the kind of girl who would sit alone during her lunch break, merely because she wasn't invited to join any tables or group of teens that sit in a circle in the green grass of the high school's courtyard. She would eat her homemade meal alone in a particular spot under a cherry blossom tree that blooms during March, her most favorable spot as well as her own personal thinking place. But today, in the sunny day of late February on Thursday, Hyuga Hinata was not alone under her cherry blossom tree. Nay, Sasuke-kun. Sakura's cheerful voice caught Hinata to look up from her lunch. Eat your tomato, I paid good money to get the ripe ones for you. The money that is mine, Sakura, Sasuke purred in a neutral voice. He took the shining, perfectly round tomato from Sakura's small hands, ignoring the eyeing fangirls that watched from a distance with their own little cliques forming bigger every moment of the Sasuke fan club. They swooned by the Uchiha's soft purr, but soon changed their expression when the icy man filled the empty space between himself and his girl to nip her nose teasingly. Arigato. Sakura scrunched her face as he kept biting her little nose, letting out a small cry as she pushed him away softly. Stop it, Sasuke-kun. Hinata-chan is watching. HN, was his only reply. Sakura wasn't blushing as she looked at Hinata. I'm sorry, Hinata-chan. Sasuke-kun is very possessive and teasing. I hope I didn't bother you at all. She clapped her hands together in apology. She picked up her small container of rice with pork meat and took nibbles with her red chopsticks. It's okay. Anyo, I don't mind it at all, Sakura-chan. Her pale eyes wandered over the couple, suddenly blurting out her words. Are you two really engaged, Sakura-chan? She didn't bother to look over at the Uchiha's cold stare at the question she asked the pink-haired cutie. Sakura donned a bright smile that made Hinata blush deep. For about a few months, I believe, she giggled like an excited child when Sasuke wrapped an arm around her shoulder, meeting the gazes of the boys who lost their girlfriends because of one particular duck-butt-haired boy. His proposal was very sweet, cha. Sakura sighed at her frequently used saying in a dreamy tone before snuggling into his arm. Hinata didn't stop herself to let a smile of her own perk on her glossy lips. What was it like? You wish to hear about it? Hinata nodded quickly. Please, I want to hear what it was like and… Sakura-chan told this story way too many times, Hinata. Naruto whimpers next to her. Her jolted her spine to straighten at his loud voice, blushing 3 times deeper than before and nearly close to the tomato's shade. God, she told our sister on the phone and basically screamed it for hours to fight with her. Oh, you have another sister? Hinata kindly touched her chin with her fingers in curiosity. Nay, she's Naruto's twin, Sakura chimed in thoughtfully, pushing Sasuke's face away, who was trying to get to her flower stem neck without her permission. I'm older than both of them, actually. By 1 year. Oh, why isn't she here with you guys? Sakura curled her fingers into a fight fist, still having a bright smile on her beautiful face, as she clenched her hand hard enough to let echoes of cracking knuckles. She's married now and lives at our previous home, keeping it clean and nice with her lazy husband. She didn't want to move and go into a school like the rest of us, right? Naruto nodded hard in response. Sakura-chan wanted her to come, but she is trying to get a career in fashion. Naruto scratched his whisker scars and sighed. She's good at it, but she isn't able to get it without education, Datbeo. He gave Hinata a bright smile. My sisters fight a lot. But I love that two-timing, backstabbing, leaving her sister for a lazy man pig. Sakura laughed full-hearted as she pat Sasuke's toned chest with Un's scary force, causing him to grunt a bit in pain. She's be visiting sometime soon. Anyway, you wanted to hear about the proposal. Hinata nodded with a smile as Naruto muttered under his breath. Here we go again. Sakura snakes her arm to interlock with one of Sasuke's arm that he was using to keep himself up. We used to live in Seoul, and we lived by this really nice park that I loved to go to every day. It has a little pond and they light it up at night with tons of pretty colors. So what Sasuke-kun did is that he reserved a special patio that was decorated with white roses and made a cute little table for us to eat dinner. Then we went on a walk around the park and proposed to me by the pond when it lit up. She made a gushy noise as she snuggled her head to Sasuke's. He comes up with the most romantic ideas, even if it seems like he is not romantic at all. That sounds so cute. Hinata giggled when she saw Naruto groan. When is the wedding? Ah. Sakura trailed off with a blank look, causing the Hyuga girl to frown a little. Did she ask the wrong question? Oh, the poor blue-haired girl is so bad at this. It was Sasuke who answered. We are still picking out dates. We want a day where most weddings don't take place, so we may have reservations available. Oh, I see. Hinata mumbled while playing with her fingers nervously. She blushes deeply before she felt a warm arm wrap behind her back, making her spine go straight. Nay, don't worry about it, Hinata. Naruto smiled toothily. You don't have to be shy around Sakura-chan. She's not too mean to females as much as smack, ehhhh. Sakura-chan, that tomato is burning my eye, datbayo. Naruto cried as he used both hands to rub the red guts from his tanned face, whimpering loudly as Hinata's eyes widened at the sudden action her new, pink-haired friend performed. Shut up, Naruto, Sakura hissed furiously, sounding so close to an angry wildcat as Hinata watched her lip curl. What have I taught you about saying rude things about women? It's gonna get me in a shitload of trouble, Naruto said in a guilty tone. But it's the truth. He got Sakura's dress shoe on his nose before he could finish. Sasuke chuckled softly as he pulled the fussy blossom onto his lap, placing kisses on the side of her head to her cheekbone. That's my girl, Teme, Naruto yelled. She's hurting me. Control your woman. Dobi, Sasuke replied while still planting kisses. I don't control my woman. Whipped, Naruto growled while rubbing his nose harshly and face away from the two. He looked at Hinata with a sudden change of emotion in his blue eyes. No more of an anger, but a innocent and eager. Hey Hinata, you wanna hang out after school? The Hyuga's eyes widened at the boy's boldness, blushing madly. We just met. Are you sure you'd wanna? I just figured because you're so nice, that's all. His lips puckered out innocently. He rubbed the back of his head softly and smiled. Sorry, I guess I was going too fast, nay? I just wanna be friends, datbayo. He picked up Sakura's dress shoe and passed it back to his older sister, who was snuggling against the Uchiha in a loving manner. We don't have to. I wouldn't know what to do anyway. Huh? I'm kinda new at making friends, honestly, Naruto laughed nervously. I really don't know what people do around here, so I guess I made a bad move. And no, it wasn't a bad move at all, Naruto-kun. Hinata waved her hands shyly. I am not good at this either, so don't feel bad about it. She felt better on the inside when Naruto donned that shiny smile that she quickly learned to like, a lot. Maybe later down the road, okay? Okay. Hinata was glad that the blonde was himself once more. She sat cross-legged, with her skirt covering of course, as she watched the couple she just met chat quietly to themselves. Minding how Sakura was sitting on her shins, the traditional Japanese sitting style, with her hands on her lap as she smiled at her fiancé. She allowed him to play with her pink trans with his long fingers, ignoring how the fangirls would growl and call out rude comments to her. Hinata wondered how Sakura was capable of sitting in such numbing position and not yell back at the new fan club for the black-haired man. Very ladylike and so calm, Hinata began to feel a slight hint of jealousy for her new friend's moves. Sakura noticed Hinata's long stare and expressed a cheery smile, her green eyes sparkling as she bubbled her cheeks to make her look even more cute. Hinata blushed and looked away. Hinata-chan, why don't you tell me about yourself? I'm curious of what your hobbies are. Hinata stared at her lap while she mumbled softly. I don't do a whole lot. I merely study and that's about it. I don't do anything with anyone on weekends unless family comes over. How is she capable of spilling everything to her new friends and not stutter? Oh, I understand, Sakura sighed thoughtfully, meeting Hinata's eyes as she poked her own cheek while speaking. I remember when I had to study and do my work. I really didn't have a personal social life with others, it gets tiring, you know? She pushed Sasuke's approaching face softly. My old schooling wasn't so nice either. They were mean to my little sister. I'm sorry to hear that, Sakura-chan, Hinata frowned lightly. She felt sad thinking of Sakura and her younger sister to be bullied by anyone with such sweet and open personalities. Even just meeting her, Hinata felt like she was her friend since the beginning of time. And Sakura's brother, Uzumaki Naruto, was something else to Hinata. She couldn't quite put it on her finger, but the boy was something special. A loud and hyperactive young man who seemed to keep his attention towards Hinata unlike every other boy in her school. She appreciates that and likes it very, very much. Hinata-chan, Sakura spoke out of her thoughts, would you like to come over to our home on Saturday? I'll be making my special tea and cakes, and I'd be most happy if you joined. She lightly clapped her fingers together and puckered her lips, like Naruto did, with her eyes glittering brightly. I was thinking of trying to invite more people, but I doubt anyone likes tea parties anymore. Tea parties? Of course, you don't have to, Sakura blinked kindly. Like you said earlier, we just met, and I wouldn't want to put you in an uncomfortable position. I figured it would be nice to get together and get to know each other more. Hinata wasn't hesitating when she answered with her continuing nods and She slowly grew bright red when Sakura squealed, slowly looking to her side to see Naruto brighten as well. If he was a puppy, his tail would be wagging 90 miles an hour. "Ah, that is wonderful to hear." Sakura cheered by pumping a fist into the air. "Sasuke-kun, write down the address and give it to Hinata-chan soon." HN. Hinata watched him pull out a pad of paper and a pen from his backpack and began to scribble down the requested note. "Hinata-chan, I hope you'll enjoy it. I really do love cooking," Sakura chirped. "Is there anything you like to do?" Hinata let her mind speak for itself. "I like reading and art, mostly painting and sketches of nature. I like reading big novels. I'm not picky within genres. We have a library," Naruto cut in politely. "Lots of books and we have a garden in the back." He started beckoning Sasuke to go faster with the writing, who was now flipping the blonde off with his free hand. Thank you for inviting me, Sakura-chan," Hinata hummed. "And not many people like to hang out with me after school hours." "Oh, why not?" Sakura pouted. "You seem like an uber nice girl, and full of fun." Red-faced Hinata blinked a few times when Sakura pulled the paper away from Sasuke's lap, ripping it from the notebook gracefully and holding it out to her. "We can chat tomorrow on what time you'd like to come over. I bake early in the morning, so it doesn't matter." Hinata kept her gaze at the pale girl's hand, blushing deeper that it could have been possible for her pretty little head to pop like a balloon with a pin. She heard the lunch hour bell ring, signaling that their break has ended, suddenly changing the gaze to watch the three new students stand up from the grass. Naruto literally jumped from the ground while Sasuke snaked his way up. Sakura gracefully rose to her feet without any stumble in one swift move. "Hinata-chan," Sakura pulled Hinata's hand out and carefully placed the folded paper into her palm, making her fingers grip gently before letting go altogether. "See you around, okay? We can talk more later." With that, Sakura turned around, letting her pink waves swish gracefully as she took Sasuke's waiting hand. Sasuke didn't say a single word to Hinata, concluding that he isn't much of a talker. He laced his fingers with hers and started walking with her as his girl waved behind her before entering the building with the crowd of students. Hinata noticed that Naruto hasn't left her side yet. She looked up to his taller height in a silent question, making him smile brightly with a slight blush. "Just thought I'd walk you into the building. Where's your next class?" It's in the chemistry room," Hinata replied. "On the 4th floor. "Oh, I know that my next class is on the 4th floor. May I walk you there?" He bent his left arm, offering it to her like a true gentleman. "It would be an honor to escort a nice lady like you." He bowed his head slightly. Hyuga Hinata couldn't help but giggle a little, blushing deep as a tomato as she let her shaky hand curl around his elbow and grip tightly. Arigato, Naruto-kun." Hinata was in her chemistry class, not really listening to the movie her classmates were told to watch and take important notes on, since she already saw the film last year. She was doodling again in her notebook, finishing the butterfly from last period, thoughtfully minding herself to mix in the color blue to change it up a bit. The note that Sakura gave her, containing the address of where she said she would attend on Saturday, was sticking out of her binder. She hasn't looked at it yet, but suddenly gave the piece of notebook paper the thought and silently pulled it out from in between the piles of notebooks she stuffed in, setting down her colorful pen to open it carefully. She was surprised to find a whole map of the town, details containing houses, trees, shops and even business buildings that Hinata wasn't aware of being there. She let her eyes travel to the school building, that was circled with the writing, "Start here," under it. Little dashes marked sidewalk paths that she was being instructed to take to out of town. Weird, she didn't know they lived that far away from school. Usually civilians live in this one big part on the southern side of town in complexes and big homes, but they live north from the school. She saw that the end of the journey would be just a step out of the town's boundary line. Wait a moment, she knows that place. She dug out her cell phone and pressed in the written address above the large X, signaling the finish, pressing search on the touchscreen, instantly getting the results off of the search engine of the Uchiha Mansion. The Uchiha Mansion was actually a compound of one-floor houses being dominated by a large mansion. It was surrounded with acres of greenery and forest. Large, iron gates seal it off from the rest of the world, unable to get intruders to go and explore the place. From what Hinata knew from the gossip back in junior high, the place was deserted and haunted by the family that used to live there many centuries ago. Story went that there was a wonderful couple with 2 lovely children that occupied the mansion. The rest of the family's branches of siblings, aunts, uncles, and elders lived in the other homes that lived around it. It was a wonderful time for the Uchihas. The head of the household was rich and was a hard-working businessman of international trading, bringing imported goods all over Japan itself. The wife, who was said to be the true beauty of the time, was a stage performer of singing in small plays in town. She retold Shakespeare and sung her own tunes to enchant anyone who heard her voice. The two were madly in love and adored one another's company, thus popping out 2 boys for additional company of joy. The eldest son was promised to be a doctor of the town, saving sick children from flu epidemics that threatened the town's population back in the day. The youngest son was not yet proven to be anything, but a child who wanted to explore the world himself and then settle down with a wife and start his own family. The mansion was something else Hinata couldn't remember, but 10 years ago, somehow in some way, there was construction workers building a mansion on a private payment. It was the greatest juice when she was a child, watching her parents talk about who could have let people into the compound and concluded with their friends that it was distant relatives who suddenly found the property. The result of the family from so long ago had many theories: murder, disappearance, suicide of the whole family. The epidemic wiped them out in one night. Hinata didn't know, but she was now more eager to see the compound itself, smiling at the idea that her new companion was the distant relatives of the mysterious rumors. She felt like the luckiest girl in the world as she looked over the detailed map that was written in pen. That Sasuke-kun is really something else, isn't he? The red-head girl Hinata spoke to early in the morning said to her blonde friend. Oh, how I hate that pink-haired brat that clings to him all the time. You said it, her friend agreed with a simple nod. I don't like her. She seems like a little Miss Perfect. Both girls let out shrieks of giggles in the deserted hallway in the back of Building 2, where they would skip class and hang out with other students. But just for today, they planned to be alone and talk within themselves of their close friendship. They made their way around the corner to find the 3 soda machines that contained pop, tea, coffee, etc. They were surprised at the fact that the Uchiha Sasuke was gazing to the numerous names alone. Their giggling was cut short when they saw the black-haired god meeting their gazes with a small, seductive smirk that made their faces melt. Hello ladies, Sasuke said with a small nod towards them. Sasuke-kun. They both squealed at the sudden attention he was giving to them besides his girl. Speaking of which, where is she? Sasuke rubbed his fine chin with his long fingers when the ladies asked the question. Oh, she's somewhere around here. I'm looking for a drink. It is very warm out today, no? He turned his head to find the 2 teenage girls nodding in agreement without hesitation, letting his smirk widen a bit. Do you know any good drinks that I could possibly have? I must say that my thirst is very painful, if you know what I mean. Sasuke offered a quick wink, letting the redhead girl puff her cheeks and the blonde giggling uncontrollably. What do you like to drink, Sasuke-kun? The redhead girl purred. She felt her own knees buckle when he stride over in a smooth motion, resting his toned arm against the wall to close in both girls into the corner. Wekn know a kid who has beer in his truck. Nah, I like something stronger. Sasuke shook his head slowly. Something that you 2 lovely ladies probably haven't took the time of your life to try. What is it called? The blonde blushed and, daringly, reached to stroke his uniform shirt with her hand. I'd like to try it, ya know. Me too. The redhead pressed into the side of her friend and touched his raven locks. Oh, Sasuke-kun, your hair is so soft. The Uchiha closed his eyes slowly, noticed by the 2 girls that his eyes were slowly rolling back in a pleasurable way, making them blush deeper. The drink is something that not many people try. When you ask them, they would find it rather disgusting and the utmost disturbing. He tilted his head to the side, exposing the beautiful neck that any girl would adore to touch and kiss, and slowly opened his eyes to cause both girls to stiffen in shock. His black eyes were no more, now the color of crimson and a small black design of moving commas of 3, piercing into the girls' eyes and straight into their tempted souls. Have you ever tried blood before? The girls did not reply, too connected into the spell that Sasuke set on them with his eyes to even notice the sharp canines that was sticking out of his mouth when he spoke in a low tone. Sasuke chuckled darkly, pushing the strands of long hair away from the redhead's neck. Well, blood is something I have to live off of, and so does Sakura. He watched the two girls' pupils dilate. But my dear Sakura can't get it herself. She is too scared to get it, like she's scared that she would hurt the person she gets it from. Sakura is very shy about letting out her inner animal. The redhead tried to speak, but all that came out was gurgles, making him smirk bigger. Since I love my precious girl so much, I took the job of supplying her food she needs to be in the sun. I am the head of my family after all. With that, Sasuke dropped his jaw as wide as he could and sank his teeth into the redhead's neck while the blonde girl kept staring ahead where the youthful man once stood. The girl Sasuke was sucking the blood out of let out a muffled sob, but didn't scream in pain or cried out for help. Her dilated eyes drooped sleepishly, suddenly acting numb in the legs. After a few minutes, Sasuke disconnected his mouth from her neck, letting her fall limp to the cemented ground, grinding her knees and scraping the skin before turning to the blonde, who was still as stone. "Smoker," Sasuke muttered with a small hiss in his voice, close to a snake sound as he tilted the remaining girl's chin up, watching her swallow before gripping his fangs into her throat animalistic-like. "Let's hope you're not the same." He sank his teeth and began to suck harder than the previous victim. Sasuke already noticed the small shadow behind him, watching him curiously as he released the last girl to fall by her companion. The puncture wounds on their necks slowly dissolved with the intense stare of the red eyes as the man wiped the very small strand of blood that barely escaped his lips with his tongue. He opened his eyes to be back to his normal cold gems. "Sasuke-kun," the voice from the shadow hummed adorably with her hips swaying, staying put in her little hiding spot. Sasuke turned around and walked to the corner of the soda machine and pulled the tiny pale hand. He wrapped his other hand around her waist and started to step in a rhythm of a slow-paced waltz, humming teasingly as Sakura squirmed in his firm hold. She squealed childishly and told Sasuke to stop it. "Why should I, Mrs. Uchiha?" Sasuke asked lazily as he dipped her back, letting her head fall back to let out a soft laugh for him to easily peck her beautiful neck. "I bring bacon home and you don't reward me with a dance? That is awfully rude, you know." He nibbled her collarbone and brought her back up. "I'm thirsty, Sasuke-kun." Sakura whimpered as he continued to kiss and bite her soft skin. She pressed her head against his, wrapping her arms around his neck in an affectionate manner as she let her dark green eyes look down onto the two unconscious girls. A slight frown reached her lips. "I didn't like it when they touched your hair, Sasuke-kun." Sasuke muttered against her skin. "I don't like them. They smell like smoke and rising hormones." She pulled his head back and gave him a serious look. "What are they dreaming about? Getting lucky with the football captain at the same time," he said with an uninterested expression. "I don't understand how people nowadays support the idea of threesomes. It's not natural in any way. Ménage à trois was popular in France, remember?" Sakura poked his nose with a little smile. "I remember when a lot of women asked if I could join them in 1814. "You're mine," Sasuke hissed sharply, making her giggle. "Oui," Sakura spoke in a fluent French accent. "But I'm thirsty, Sasuke-kun." Sakura began to lightly trace the faint blue vein that lingered on Sasuke's strong neck, causing him to shiver pleasurably. "The sun is starting to make me feel uncomfortable, Sire Uchiha." "Not my name." Sasuke touched his nose with hers. "What have we agreed on that particular calling?" Sakura went onto her toes to reach his shoulders, pressing her doll-like lips to his chin, lightly kissing his skin and began to trail down his jaw. Sasuke-kun does not find it pleasing that the girl he has his eye for to call him such a high-ranking name. She brushed her mouth to his ear and breathed down his neck. Especially after the point he gives her gifts and makes her smile. The calling of Sire Uchiha makes him feel like he has a slave, which is not what Uchihas lived before. "I am part of the union of the Uchihas, and therefore, I must call my husband of many centuries by his first name." Very good, Sakura," he praised professionally. He bent his neck to the side and wrapped both arms around Sakura's small waist. "Dinner is served, my dear." Sakura closed her eyes and sunk her tiny canine teeth into his exposed neck, gently sucking her meal out of him. Her small hands combed through his raven hair and received an approving purr from Sasuke's lips, pressing her body closer as she felt her teeth shrink as she took one last pint in a matter of seconds. She detached her lips from his skin and opened her eyes to show her bright sparkles. The light green hue of her eyes let Sasuke nod in approval and swept this thumb across her chin to remove the spots of blood Sakura spilled during her meal, leaving his digit to trace her lower lip as she smiled thoughtfully. Arigato, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke kissed her mouth with passion, not planning to let her get away anytime soon. Besides, Sakura and Sasuke are done with their classes for the day and Naruto was not here to annoy him while he was busy with his most tolerable, which means his favorite in both companions' opinion, girl in the whole universe. He doesn't get silent moments like this with Sakura since they arrived in Japan, mostly for many reasons of unpacking, decorating, and Sakura socializing while Naruto clung to her side like a lovable boy. But Sakura was his girl, and he doesn't share. Sakura was getting tired of the attention Sasuke was giving her mouth, letting her hand begin to glow with a soft blue-green mist as she chucked Sasuke away, letting flickers of her odd flames dissolve instantly when he landed graceful on his keep a foot away from her. "Can't you ever wait until we get home, Sasuke-kun?" Sakura asked with her arms crossed. Students get in trouble if they get caught doing something naughty within school property. "You know that." Sasuke shrugged lazily. "I've seen it in movies. Sometimes movies give false ideas of what school is like." He pressed the tip of his fingers on her hips, which was unfortunate for Sasuke because he wanted to touch more of the soft skin that his girl had when she was not hungry. "Besides, I want to keep practicing." Sakura made a face of annoyance. "The practice we've been doing for way too many years, Sasuke-kun. Girls get sore after a while, cha." She stomped her petite foot on the ground. "We can practice when it's time to conceive, a lot of time to try." "Sasuke wants to succeed on the first try," Sasuke pointed out in third person. "Uchihas don't keep trying when it's time. Your parents did." Sakura pouted her lower lip with big eyes. "We're not my parents." Sasuke pecked her cheek, causing his girl to wrap her arms around his neck once more and snuggle into the crook of his neck with her nose. "When we get you fixed, I don't plan on letting you leave the room for anything until we're done, understood? And you said you don't control your woman, Sakura, ed." She let her fingers play with a spiky strand of Sasuke's super soft hair as she changed her tone. "Can we go home now, Sasuke-kun?" Sasuke pulled away from her and took her small hand with his large one, starting to walk quietly away from the still unconscious teenagers that they feasted on only a few moments ago. After 15 minutes, the two girls woke up with heated faces, giggling to each other as they got up from the ground and make it on time to re-enter the school before the ending bell. They walked through the crowded hallway, trying so hard not to bump into anyone, but they failed as they ran into a tanned-skinned, blonde-haired man, who was carrying his backpack on one shoulder. Uzumaki Naruto could tell just by inhaling their scent that they were missing blood. Letting a sigh escape his lips and walk around the two fuming girls, he exited the school and walked to the sidewalk. "Man, Teme is gonna be pissed when I burst into the room," Naruto muttered playfully with the evil smile on his face. He thought hard of his plan to interrupt Sasuke's game with his precious Sakura. Of course, he will receive a deadly beating from Sasuke about how he interrupted him and his wife during their bonding time, and will get a very long lecture from Sakura on how trying to look at her exposed skin was not alright with her. He can remember the first time he walked in on the two couple at the age of 10. Thanks to Sasuke, he told the youngster that it was a very bad idea to go into the Uchiha's bedroom at night, since there was a brutal monster that dwelled inside. Thanks to Sakura's ancient folktales about spirits and monsters of Japan. And it ate little boys who lingered past the Uchiha's private quarters. Despite being the stubborn 10-year-old he was, Uzumaki Naruto was desperately afraid of thunderstorms. He didn't like saying that he was afraid of them in front of Sasuke, so he always whispers it into Sakura's ear before bed and have her tell him bedtime stories to let him fall asleep before turning in with her husband. He was always happy to have Sakura give him sweet treatment when Sasuke won't. So, on the night when it was thunderstorming really hard, Naruto stood outside the closed bedroom shoji door where Sasuke and Sakura slept. He called out a few times for Sakura Nichan, but nothing could be made out with the harsh raindrops and thunder crashing. Naruto held his teddy bear, Mr. Wub Wub, as tight as he could, whimpering with his pouted lip quivering as he stared at the closed door. "Sakura Nichan," Naruto cried out childishly. He pawed at the wooden frame as carefully as he could, chanting over the rain that pounded more harshly to the minutes that passed. It wasn't until the lightning bolt that struck just outside the open wall that served as a hallway for their home, making the frightened young boy burst into the room to scream for them. Oni-chan, Oni-chan, there is, you little twit, I'm going to kill you. Naruto smiled at the memory of reactions of the two being caught red-handed. He didn't see as much as you would expect, basically because of the fact that he didn't have night vision like them and there was a blanket covering them. Sasuke was on top of Sakura so he didn't see her chest, thank goodness. He learned that early morning of how when two people love each other very much, and every once in a while, which in Sasuke's term was every day, they need to express their love for each other in special ways. Adults were complicated to Naruto back then, but when they brought him into the world of vampires, he learned quickly that the world was full of things that humans should not know about. He was thankful that his adopted family accepted his questions and his way of life into their lives, saving his life on his 18th birthday when they were living in Kyoto. Sasuke was the one who changed Naruto for the sake of making sure he would be complete compared to Sakura. But that would be saved for another day, dear reader. Little Naruto peeked around the wall to watch two taller figures making graceful moves across the living room's wooden floor. Not making a single noise with their feet, but the sound of the record player cracked on the scratches it received over the years of constant moving. His big blue eyes followed the long obi sash that hung loose from the tied bow, circling around the two dancers as the leading male spun him and his partner around quickly to make her giggle like an angel. Naruto's fat cheeks tinted pink when he heard the pretty voice he adored so much. Jeepers, even he dreams of the voice singing him to a wonderful dream at night. He watched the blossom designs on the sash halt and begin to swish to the instruments of the song, letting his eyes trail up the fabric to the kimono design of red with the small Uchiwa fan stitched professionally on the bottom of the collar, lightly covered with chopped pink strands of shining hair. Naruto always thought of Sakura as the most prettiest girl he has ever seen. He fell in love with every movement she made in her tightly wrapped body and her bright smile that put him to ease whenever he was upset or scared. A smile of a young woman who would make a perfect mother one day. Naruto wished he was the tall, dark and handsome man who was leading his little crush around in the dance. Uchiha Sasuke served as like an older brother to Naruto rather than a father figure. He knows he is not the kind of man who would tuck Naruto in and tell him bedtime stories like Sakura does, but Naruto doesn't mind it. He likes to pick fights with Sasuke, even at a young age, and try to get on his bad side during meals, usually poking his ribs, and always says, "Oi, Teme-chan. Teme, Teme," until Sakura herself roughly smacks his behind with her fan. He was also a little jealous of Sasuke because of Sakura, but Sakura tells him every night, after he says he loves Sakura with all his heart, that someday he will find his own princess. That gives the little kid hope for his future if he would have to say goodbye to Sakura and Sasuke. The 6-year-old watched as Sasuke slightly tightened his arm around Sakura's tiny waist and pulled her hand in his other to bring their bodies closer. He touched his perfect nose with her little one as he made a playful purr from his throat, letting Naruto to grow his curiosity by crawling on all fours to get a closer look by the couch. Sasuke began humming the lyrics of the English song that Naruto couldn't really understand since he can't speak English at all. He rested his forehead against Sakura's and whispered to her in soft tones that Naruto could hear with his human ears. "Lady Sakura," Sasuke hummed with a smirk on his lips, "how could I have been the luckiest man in the world to get a chance to dance with you?" "Well, Sir Sasuke-kun," Sakura giggled at his name, "I actually have a long list of other gentlemen who are waiting for their turn. You are actually at the very bottom. Uchihas can get up the list in a snap," Sasuke mused. "But geishas lists are confidential, Sasuke-kun," gasped the pink-haired girl in a fake shock. "You know the punishment for wandering eyes into the geisha's private papers." "I don't care. As long as I get to be near this particular beauty, I don't give a damn at all." Sasuke smirked bigger as he knelt down to kiss her soft lips possessively. He murmured against her mouth as he spoke, "I might have to steal you from your Okia tonight, Sakura." Sakura giggles echoed the whole room as he kept kissing her, dipping her back carefully with a firm grip. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back as she felt her body getting closer to the ground, opening her bright green jades to look around the room, meeting blue orbs that was peeking behind the couch. "Sasuke-kun," Sakura whispered softly as her husband began to nibble her jaw softly. She smiled as he grunted, obviously keeping himself busy with her skin. Sasuke-kun, we have company. She pointed with her covered hand over to the couch, having the Uchiha follow her gaze. Naruto, Sasuke said, signaling that the little kid was caught red-handed by the meanie. He placed Sakura down on the floor to let her sit on her shins like she usually does, sitting next to her, and took hold of her hands while sitting cross-legged after removing the needle from the record player to stop the music. Sakura waved her free hand to beckon the little blonde over. Come here, honey. Why are you up so early in the morning? You should be sleeping another few hours or you'll be tired. Naruto clung to his teddy bear, that he named Mr. Wub Wub, as he wobbled his way to the two vampires. He plopped on his bottom with his legs sticking out from his nightgown as he gazed up to meet their eyes. I had a very bad dream, Oni-chan. I was too scared to go back to sleep. Sakura's doll-like lips pouted for her little friend. Oh, that's too bad. Did it feel real to you, Naruto? When the toddler nodded really fast and hid his face in Mr. Wubwub's head, Sakura tugged on his little feet to get his attention. Well, we can't have a little boy be up at this hour, can we? Do you want a bedtime story? Yes please, the little boy perked up instantly. The dark-haired man craned his neck, stretching lazily as he got up from the ground. I can do it tonight, Sakura. You go get ready for bed before the sun comes up. He crouched on his knees and stuck his arms out. When the little kid didn't move from his spot, he wiggled his long fingers. Come on, buddy. I'm not going to hurt you. You told him that last time when he buried your katana, Sakura muttered as she rose in one move. She gave Naruto a little smile and winked at him. It's okay, honey. Sasuke-kun is good at telling stories, too. Good night. She scurried off out of the room and closed the shoji door that held Sasuke and Sakura's futon. Sasuke picked up the whining blonde and held him against his strong chest. Naruto buried his face in his shoulder with Mr. Wub Wub squished with him, listening to the strong heartbeat that the vampire possessed, unlike his wife who had no heartbeat. He carried the little boy back to his bedroom and placed him on the padded bedding they arranged for him. He pried the toddler's little fingers off from his neck and covered him with a thick quilt that kept him warm in the cold night. All right, kid, Sasuke sighed softly as he sat on the edge of the bed. What kind of story would you like to hear? Oni-chan, the little boy's blue eyes looked up him. I want to hear the story of how you met Oni-chan. When she was human. Uchiha Sasuke ran his fingers through his spiky hair, inhaling as he heard the kid's request before replying in his cool tone. That was a very long time ago, kid, centuries ago. He pressed his nails to his chin as his eyes went dark into the memories his great, wise mind possessed. Okay, I think I can tell you it for tonight, but it may scare you a bit. Your older sister didn't have an easy life, you know. I done care, Naruto pouted stubbornly. I'm a man, I can take it, Teme. Uchiha Sasuke smirked at the kid's strong will to hear the tale of himself and his wife from many years before. Alright, you've been warned, Dobi. Friday. Hyuga Hinata slipped the drawing of the directions into her book bag before she went into the sleek black car to be driven off to school. She had a smile on her face, which surprised all the maids and butlers at the Hyuga estate when she was eating her healthy breakfast of cooked eggs and fruit, taking the bento package her personal chef prepared for her, and squealed in excitement. Hyuga Hinata doesn't squeal in excitement. On the ride to school, which was about 15 minutes, Hinata was busying herself by playing with her long hair. As if she never seen her beautiful hair before, she was smiling softly with a great amount of sparkles in her pale eyes. The driver would ask if she's excited for a test today, but she would reply silently by shaking her head slowly before seeing herself being pulled into the school's entrance. Thank you so much for the ride. Hinata waved cheerfully before hopping out of the leathered vehicle. She didn't notice how the driver, who has been escorting the young teenager since she was in kindergarten, was expressing a nervous look since he has never seen her act this way. Usually sitting with her back straight and empty eyes, but today was different for sure. She walked into the open yard of the school, eyeing every teenage clique and group in their usual hanging spots, keeping their business within their own grounds as she passed them without a second glance. No one really ever spoke to Hinata in the morning, unless it was a question for homework or what was to be studied for the upcoming exams, which let the Hyuga's heiress roam quietly like a mouse she was. Hinata was used to being quiet, But today was something different in the world of reality. Hinata-chan. A feminine voice echoes across the schoolyard, having every head turned to the source of the sound in an instant. Hinata-chan, we're over here. Hinata looked to see Uzumaki Sakura wave elegantly, perched on a giant rock that was under an old crabapple tree. She noticed that Uchiha Sasuke was sitting right behind her, with his legs on either side of her hips and his arms wrapped around her tiny waist, not showing any expression on his pretty face as she hurried over to them. "Good morning, Hinata-chan," Sakura smiled brightly. "How are you this morning?" I'm fine, Sakura-chan." Hinata finally blushed for the first time today. "How about you?" She began to fidget with her index fingers adorably, hearing Sakura giggle at her shy reaction. "I am very good, thank you for asking." Sakura gushed by clapping her cheeks with her hands. "Sasuke-kun took me on a tour around town last night before dinner, but Naruto wouldn't come with us. Maybe you could show him someday? He won't be anywhere near Sasuke-kun after school." Hinata blinked a few times before nodding softly with a smile. "I'd love to help him out." Sakura perked a toothy smile before throwing her head back against Sasuke's shoulder, literally screaming as loud as she could to make the Uchiha shiver from the ringing in his ear. "Naruto, get your butt down here and say good morning to Hinata-chan. Sasuke-kun and I taught you to be a gentleman, didn't we?" "Hi," a hyper voice came from above. Hinata let her curious eyes look up to the giant tree to see Uzumaki Naruto hanging from one of the branches that was thick enough to hold one person. But swinging from it, it would easily cause the branch to break. Naruto swung his lower body and launched himself to fall. "I'm coming down. Oh my god," Hinata cried out. She began to flap her arms around and begin jumping. "He's gonna fall. What in the heck is he?" Naruto landed on his feet and sprang up to greet the frightened girl. "Heya, how ya doin', Hinata? I could see you from all the way up there." He pointed to where he was just having a good time moments ago. "You all look like little ducklings." "Naruto," Sakura hissed like a cat, startling Hinata again. "You can't treat Hinata-chan like that after she has agreed to help you get to know the town." It's okay, Sakura-chan." Hinata waved her hand. Hinata-chan, I wanted to ask you what kind of cakes you like to eat." Sakura changed the subject straight away, not forgetting to glare at the blonde who scurried back to the trunk of the tree. "And your favorite tea, too. I want to see if I can make it from scratch." Hinata formed her lips to a small O shape. "Anyo, mint tea is my most favorite. My favorite cake is, I'm not too picky." Hinata squirmed with her hands. "Anything that is sweet, I suppose." "Oh good." Sakura clapped with joy. "Did you pick a time you wanted to come over?" Hinata was quick with her thinking, but not processing it all too well. "Would 10 in the morning be alright with you? Just so I have time to find my way." Sakura nodded. "That is perfectly fine with me, cha." Sakura suddenly squirmed when Sasuke pulled her onto his lap, planting kisses on her cheekbone. "Oh okay." Hinata agreed willingly, suddenly being pulled by a strong, warm hand towards the tree. She looked over to see Naruto leading her to the trunk of the crabapple tree, having a bright smile on his tanned face. "Naruto-kun. What are you doing?" "Gotta leave the two lovebirds alone once in a while," Naruto hummed as he looked up the tree. "I thought I'd show ya how to sit on a tree branch. You seem like you never done it before, so I thought I'd be the gentleman in teaching you." You don't have to." Hinata insisted, trying to tug away. "I'm not so good at heights, Naruto-kun." She couldn't escape the young man's gentle grasp and finally whined in defeat. "I won't let you fall, Hinata. I promise you," Naruto claimed as he stuck out his pinky finger with his free hand, offering to sign the deal with her. His eyes were soft and very warm to Hinata, reminding her heart that it's not used to beating so hard and so fast within the minute. "I promise, Hinata." Hinata couldn't stop her own free hand to raise itself and intertwine her pinky with his, gripping hard onto his promise. She nodded slowly to him and offered a soft smile. "I trust you, Naruto-kun. It's alright." The blonde boy jumped in victory, pumping a fist into the air. "Dat bayo. Alright, I'll get you to at least sit on that branch since it's lower, okay?" He pointed to the branch that was only 6 to 7 feet off the ground, making Hinata gulp a little. "I'll just set you on the branch, so you can get the feel of it." With that, the Uzumaki brother scooped Hinata from the ground. "Anyo. It's alright," Naruto chuckled, settling her on the branch in a second. Hinata was confused on how Naruto managed to get himself up high enough to reach the branch. Granted, Naruto was the same height as Sasuke, but both barely reached the height of 6 feet tall regardless. He made sure Hinata was secured and comfortable before taking a seat next to the blushing girl on the same branch. "See? It's perfectly safe with me here." Hinata played with her fingers as she childishly looked at him. She smiled sweetly at his protective attitude, seeing his hand on the other side of her for back support. Oh yes, she's blushing here, too, feeling absolute calm with his presence. Hinata has really never felt this safe with anyone before, not even her parents holding her hands when she was little. It was nice for Hinata to feel so safe with her brand new friends, like she has known them since forever and dreams to have good times with them in the near future. Naruto felt Hinata's shoulder press hesitantly against him, smiling toothily as he returned the touch by moving his hand closer to her side. He looked over his shoulder to check on Sasuke and Sakura's spot on the giant rock. Sasuke was staring at the blonde boy with the glare of a death sentence, his lips slowly curling up in an attempt to expose his large canine fang to prick his lovely lip. His black coal eyes were slowly bleeding red with 3 commas swirling at Naruto as a warning. Uchiha Sasuke was not happy at Naruto's action of carrying Hinata and climbed the tree with just his feet 7 feet into the air. A typical vampire move that was not noticed by humans, but that didn't matter. Naruto knew the rules Sasuke had set years ago on Naruto's 18th birthday of what he can and cannot do with his new given power. Naruto smiled brightly at the ice-cubed man, exposing his own fangs behind Hinata's soft head, mocking the elderly vampire that he certainly didn't give a damn of what Sasuke thought about his action, as long as no human saw what he performed. He closed his mouth instantly when Hinata turned her head to face him with a soft smile. "Naruto-kun, I like it a lot up here," Hinata confessed with a rosy blush to her cheeks. "Thank you for getting me up on the branch. I'd like to try going higher next time." Naruto laughed jolly, his perfect teeth set in a flat, straight line. "Haha. That's great, Hinata. Of course I would take you up next time." Naruto's skull was slammed forcefully against the cemented brick wall, the sound of cracking minerals echoed in his ears, but no sound of bones breaking was heard. He groaned in slight pain, but mostly annoyance, as the collar of his shirt was grabbed by a very pale hand, pushing his whole body up against the wall he was thrown at previously. "Damn," Uchiha Sasuke was pissed. "You little shit." The animalistic growl escaped Sasuke's lips. "What in the fuck were you thinking?" Naruto had a pass from his 5th-hour class to use the restroom, which really is what he uses to walk around the school for 3 minutes to pretend to be peeing, when Sasuke literally threw him out the open window of the 4th floor, landing face first on the grass. After the landing, Sasuke grabbed him on the back of the head and dragged him behind the school's courtyard and smacked his skull to the cement. Naruto didn't feel any pain whatsoever, but he certainly felt something when Sasuke skid his face across the wall. "What you talking about, Sasuke?" Naruto chuckled softly. "I was just helping Hinata out and getting up in the tree, Datbayo." "Don't give me that, Dobi." Sasuke's snake-like hiss sent shivers down his spine. "You know you can perform such movements in front of the human population." He pushed Naruto harder against the wall with his fist. Reality would show that it would have killed a full-grown human man. Naruto felt little pressure against his ribcage. "I figured you'd take another week or so until you did something so stupid." "Well, sorry that I wanted to have fun once in a while with Hinata," Naruto hissed back as best as he could. "It's not really my fault that you make all these rules just to be around humans during the day. Must I remind you that these rules are what keep you alive with humans, you moronic toad?" Sasuke defeated Naruto's thoughts in an instant. "It's what kept Sakura safe from all those years ago and I for many centuries. You, on the other hand, don't seem to grasp the idea that people nowadays don't understand the idea of blood-sucking creatures living as their neighbors or honorable students. Do you see my idea?" "Yeah," Naruto sighed in defeat. "You really are testing my nerves, Naruto. You don't get the fact that someone, especially Hyuga, can't get the idea of our kind living side by side." He let go of Naruto's dress shirt, letting him drop his rear to the ground. He tugged his uniform tie loose as he looked down onto the annoyed blonde. "You've seen what happened when we tried to bring a human into the dark. It never ends good for their mortal lives. But that's why we change them, right?" Naruto raked his hair with his fingers. "Wrong." Sasuke hissed again, making the boy shiver. Purebloods change humans because they lack company nowadays. Loneliness is something that our kind cannot adapt in a healthy way, usually changing their looks on life of blood and murder on the innocent humans. I chose Sakura to be my companion years ago, but I did not change her to join me in the dark. I wanted her to be able to live a normal life until then. Sasuke didn't notice in time to silence himself to see Sakura standing behind him, watching the two boys argue over the subject. His eyes widened at the sense of his wife and turned to face her. Sakura's eyes were shiny with slight tears. Sasuke-kun. It's not only purebloods who can't adapt to loneliness. Naruto feels it, too. She let her gaze look down to her black shoes, tracing the designs with her green orbs. Naruto wants to be himself with Hinata, and I understand that. Sakura, weren't you the same way with me, Sasuke-kun? Did you lack companionship that you wished to be yourself in front of me when I had a heartbeat? Don't let Naruto suffer the pain of being unable to be himself with his new friend. He needs someone who doesn't understand him to get to know him. Sasuke was silent when Sakura looked into Naruto's eyes, giving him a message that only she was able to give to him. The sign of hope and the sign that everything will be alright between him and Sasuke, despite his icy attitude towards the young lad at the moment. Naruto, why don't you get back to class now? Sasuke-kun and I are going home. She waved two fingers, telling him that he should hurry with his attempt. She watched him scramble from the dirty ground and climb up the cemented wall to hop into the window. Sakura walked slowly towards the silent man, wrapping her arms around his neck in a loving gesture as she tangled her pale fingers in his raven hair. She went onto her toes and pulled his head down to kiss him gently, finally receiving her lover to wrap his strong arms around her and kiss her back. He was stubborn to pull away, but kept his mouth attached to some sort of her skin as she pressed her thumb in between their mouths, kissing the thumb softly as Sakura took the time to speak. Sasuke-kun, Sakura started, you know he's still a child on the inside. He is Kushina's son after all with Minato's personality. She let him take her wrist and begin kissing her palm with small love bites. Don't punish him so hard when he only wishes to be friendly with Hinata, okay? Sasuke grunted, not moving his mouth away from her hand. Fine. Sakura smiled her usual smile as she pulled her hand away to go back behind his neck, kissing his cheek lightly as she whispered in his ear. And if you ever get angry, you can always take it out on me, Sasuke-kun, she hummed in a seductive voice, making Sasuke's eyes widen a bit in surprise. The eyes of Sasuke's emotion of surprising tone changed to a dirty smirk in the matter of minutes. I'm going to have to hold that against you, Sakura. You're making a deal with a vampire, remember? Yes, Sakura nodded, suddenly out of his firm grasp and is now on the other side of the courtyard, hiding behind a tree with her hips shaking teasingly. But you'd have to catch me first. Cha, with a simple wink of her eye, Sakura was out of sight. Sasuke couldn't help but chuckle darkly as he sensed Sakura moving at the speed of light in the forest behind the school, passing by herds of deer at this point as he stuffed his hands in his pockets and began to walk coolly into the woods, humming a simple song. Naruto watched as Sasuke's shadow disappeared into the forest, leaning against the windowsill as he watched the trees brush against the wind, sighing deeply as his thoughts went over what happened minutes ago, slamming his own head against the wooden frame of the window, cursing to himself as he made a move to return to his class. Horny old man, Naruto muttered. Hinata was surprised to find Naruto waiting for her outside of her last hour at the end of the day. He was just leaning against the wall with one foot against it, his arms crossed in a comforting as he expressed a bright smile to the girl, making her blush madly and return the smile with a wiggle of her fingers and a greeting. She scurried off to him and straightened her back to try and meet his gaze from inches above her. Naruto-kun, what are you doing here? She asked without a single stutter, but her volume was a bit too low. Naruto smiled bigger. I figured I would be the gentleman I am and walk you home. He kicked himself off of the wall and stuck out his elbow just like yesterday's sweet gesture. Only if you want to. I could also see what the town looks like on the walk. I haven't gotten out a whole lot last night to check it out. He winked sweetly at the blushing girl who slowly took hold of his strong arm. She noted how warm he felt over the uniform sleeve. I'd love that. Hinata sputtered adorably, making the Uzumaki brother smile as he led the girl through the thick crowds of teenagers eyeing them with curiosity. I'm coming over to your house on Saturday. Yeah, I know, Naruto replied calmly with a sparkling twinkle in his blue eyes. Sakura-chan has been talking about it since you two made the plans. I'm excited for you to come over, too. I'd like to take you out on a walk in the backyard. It's really amazing to wander in the woods. Lots of trees and animals you can watch out for. Hinata reminded herself that the Uchiha mansion had lots of acres of land, containing woodsy forest and streams within its own backyard, and possibly beyond that could have been a mystery to the child's fantasy. Oh yes, I'd like to do that with you, Naruto-kun. It seems like a great idea after having a tea party with Sakura-chan. Hinata smiled as she gripped Naruto's arm a bit tighter, a very small hint of fear in the idea. It's okay, Hinata, Naruto stated as he looked down to her. I'd protect you from scary squirrels and evil chipmunks, Datbeo. He saluted proudly with his free hand and stomped his foot onto the tiled floor before exiting the school building. You would be safe with me around for sure. Hinata couldn't stop herself from laughing wholeheartedly, openly hugging his arm in front of everyone who was watching them at the moment to hold her ground from falling as Naruto laughed along with her. Anyo. Naruto-kun, how come you like to be silly, nay? Me? Silly? Why, I'm simply just being myself, Hinata. Naruto defended. Sakura-chan always said I act so much like my parents, Datbeo. Really? Hinata's pale eyes met his in sudden interest. What are your parents like? Naruto stopped walking on the sidewalk, suddenly having a blank expression on his face as he kept his eyes on her. Hinata couldn't understand what Naruto was doing as he slowly grew sad with his expression. Not having tears, but he looked like he could have if he really wanted to. Naruto-kun? My parents. They passed away when I was a baby, Naruto said softly as he placed his free hand on top of Hinata's, assuring her that he was alright. They were killed when I was very small. I don't remember them very well, honestly. Hinata's eyes widened. Oh, I am so sorry, Naruto-kun. Naruto gave her the sweetest smile. It's okay, Hinata. You didn't know, so I wouldn't worry about it. I couldn't be mad at you anyway. You're too nice. He let go of Hinata's hand and reached into his back pocket. Sakura-chan gave me a small photo of them. She keeps their pictures hidden somewhere safe, so they don't get ruined, you know. But she gave me one on my birthday. He pulled out his brown wallet and slipped out a photo that was the size of your palm. Here, take a look. This is my mother and father, Kushina and Minato. He pointed to the certain figures in the sepia-hued photo. Hinata looked at the photo in awe. The woman in the photo was a beauty, with very long hair. Her eyes sparkled with love and adoration for the man next to her, her lovely hands sticking out of the dark kimono as she pressed them to the man's strong cheeks in a sweet manner as she pressed her face against his. The man next to her was like a handsome prince, looking a lot like their son as he smiled brightly just like him. He had a cherry blossom flower in one hand, arranging it into his wife's hair to brighten her face. Long strands flowing through his fingers as he gave her such a look of love. Hinata could tell that the two was so deep in love in the single photo. Your mother is very beautiful, Naruto-kun, Hinata whispered softly. And you look so much like your father, it's so cute. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Hee, thanks. Sakura always tells me how I act like my father in my blonde moments, but I have my mother's idea of having a good time, you know? We both like to cause a little trouble here and there. He took the photo back gently from her fingers, being gentle not to touch her skin, as he placed the photo back into the wallet with such care. This photo looks old, but it's been through a lot over the years. I do my best to take care of it, so I take it everywhere with me. I think it's very sweet that you hold them close. Hinata nodded encouragingly, hesitant to tug his sleeve gently to offer him a smile. You're a very good person, Naruto-kun, and I think your parents would be proud of you for that. Naruto looked at Hinata, unsure of what to make of her comment. Wasn't it just hours ago when Sasuke told him he was an idiotic fool? But it was Sakura who told them both that Naruto isn't the only creature who lacks companionship, wishing to bring someone new to look into his lifestyle, to hold his hand when he feels upset about who he is, and what he does to keep himself able to be around humans without having them give him a second glance and maybe, just maybe, join him someday so he can live happily ever after. Sakura once told him, when he was a little boy, that vampires can tell when they are meant to have a certain person to be their partner in the immortal life of a vampire. She told him that Sasuke felt it when he found her, and now that Naruto is a vampire himself, he could feel that same feeling someday in his immortal life. Since Naruto has entered the town they are living in, he felt that he could feel this special feeling of being alive. His immortal soul was telling him that he must roam in the night, skipping hours on needed sleep, searching for the source of the feeling that is causing his mind to reel for hours on end. He figured that it was a wild animal, having his hunting instincts battle with his head. But no, it wasn't a wild animal that was causing him to make his immortal heart beat faster and feel like he needs to protect something. It was Hyuga Hinata. She was the one Naruto wanted to keep safe in the actual reality of life. Naruto remembered what happened on the first night he and his friends arrived to the town last month, slowly adapting to the new home Sasuke opened up on the Uchiha estate. How his overwhelming feeling of finding something he lost was too much for him to handle and keep to himself. Naruto found Sakura opening the box that held the pounds of books to stack inside the library when he came into the room running. He literally rammed himself at his friend, tackling her to the ground and sent books flying, growls and hisses of a cat-like noise coming from the pink-haired girl as she pinned the blonde by grabbing his throat with him on bottom. "What in the hell do you think you're doing, Naruto?" Sakura screeched in anger at the sudden attack. She jumped off of him and rearranged her kimono, fixing her obi that became slanted unevenly. "I'm trying to unpack here and so should you. Is your bedroom done yet?" Naruto stayed on the floor with his arms sprawled out from the wrestling match, his eyes glued to the ceiling. "Sakura-chan, I don't feel so good. What are you talking about? Vampires don't get sick, so you can't sneak out of working with that anymore." She poked his rib with her bare foot, tickling him where he was usually weak. When she didn't get a giggle attack out of him, her face became soft and confused. "What is wrong, Naruto?" Naruto finally looked over to meet the eyes he always loved to look at. "I have this weird feeling inside my chest. It hurts a lot and I can't stop thinking about it." He followed the green eyes as she knelt down to her knees, hugging her legs as she watched the boy look back to the ceiling with no interest at all. "I feel like there is something wrong, but I don't know what. I want to go outside and go run as fast as I can until I feel better, but I don't think it would be enough, you know?" He began to kick his feet in the air in frustration, pulling his blonde locks harshly. "I don't like it. It's driving me nuts, Datbeo." Sakura let the boy she raised scramble for a few moments before smacking him with her fan on his head, making him whimper at the sudden attack and freeze on the spot. "Calm down, Naruto. It's nothing for you to worry about." She got up and went to pick up the books that was thrown on the floor with no special care. "But what is it, Sakura-chan? I don't like it." Naruto whined desperately. Sakura set 2 books on the lowest shelf before returning to the box to grab more. "You're getting that feeling when your soulmate is nearby, honey. It's nothing not to like, but it is going to drive you crazy." She pulled out more books and whistled for Naruto to help, which he complied by crawling over and grabbing a bunch of books that humans couldn't carry. "This is something you might want to ask Sasuke-kun about, since he is a male vampire. But, coming from a girl, your vampire senses are telling you that your body is ready to find the girl of your dreams." Naruto set the books down before beginning to stalk, setting a disbelief look. "I doubt that, Sakura-chan," he laughed jokingly. "Nay, it's like you're saying that I'm ready to get a wife. Huh, as if. You're the only girl I ever want." He looked over to see the pink-haired girl giving him a serious expression, causing the blonde vampire to freeze in his stance and gulp. "Why, you're serious?" Sakura nodded with puckered lips. "Naruto, you know I love you very much. But I do not love you like that. Sasuke-kun is the only man who I wish to live forever with." Sakura spoke in the softest tone, like when Naruto would tell him bedtime stories when he was very little. "Sasuke-kun felt the same way when he came to my village all those years ago." "I know," Naruto grumbled. "You two are meant to be together forever and blah, blah, bleak." "That hurts." Naruto was cut short by Sakura's fan jabbing him in the ear. "Naruto," Sakura whispered quietly, cupping his face very softly as she looked deep into his eyes, "when you find the one who is meant to be yours for all eternity, you will understand how Sasuke-kun feels for me as I do for him." She let a smile stretched on her pale face, making Naruto's heartbeat speed up. "You're a very good man and I know that Sasuke and I have taught you well. Just please be careful in this world, Naruto. It's different and I wouldn't want to live another moment to see you hurt because of the pain the girl could be given down that road. She went onto her toes and lightly kissed Naruto's forehead, like she did when he was a good boy as a toddler and a baby, hugging him close to her warm body and wrapped her arms around his broad body. I love you, Naruto. I want you to be happy like your parents wanted you to. Naruto closed his eyes slowly, savoring the feeling of the woman who he had loved in his head for so many years, but never in his heart. He wrapped his strong arms around her tiny body, pulling her close enough to be suffocating her as he buried his face in her pink hair. A single tear ran down his tanned, whiskered cheek as he exposed the brightest smile that Sakura has seen for the first time in his life. Sakura-chan. Arigato, Naruto sniffed a bit before letting go of her for the last time. I want to find her as soon as possible, Datbeo. Sakura nodded with a simple gaze. You will. But first, you gotta help me finish with the library since you tackled me to the ground. Sakura-chan, that's not Aoi. Okay, I'll help. Naruto looked into Hinata's beautiful, pale eyes. He wondered what kind of color they were, exactly what was the name of the eye color this lovely girl possessed. He hoped to find out someday down the road of his journey. He knew he wanted Hinata by his side the whole way, and hopefully, be by his side like Sakura was to Sasuke. Maybe someday get married to an eternal bond that no one else could ever break with him alive to protect this girl. He smiled brightly as he reached down and took hold of the girl's small hand, noting that her hand was small and very cool to his touch. Ice to his fire, you could say. He was really glad that the girl didn't pull away when they touched hands, and kept the smile on his cheeks as he went back to walking down the sidewalk with his next goal. He plans to show Hinata who he really is on Saturday. 1910s, spring. Sakura walked quietly down the path of the flower trees, admiring the brightness of the sun that shone beautifully through the cherry blossom trees. She thought of distant memories that would bring her back to where she came from, softly beginning to hum a song she was taught to sing back in her day. A song of the beauties of spring and the natural rebirth of all living things, including the blossoming of love and future promises. She would hum this song to Sasuke, having him admire her singing voice as he traced his fingers on her bare skin of her back in the early morning. She would spend nights after feeding off of Sasuke in pure bliss in his embrace with his gentle touches as they rocked against each other. Sakura slapped her cheek hard, making herself break out of last night's activity, even though it was purely wonderful. She sighed with a deep blush to her pale cheeks, enjoying the silence nature was giving her on this walk. It took only a second for Sakura's keen ears to hear an abnormal sound of sobbing and whimpers of an immature voice, possibly a young child. She curiously roamed through the bushes as she pushed a branch out of her eyesight, looking upon a small pond that was hidden from the rest of the world. And a small girl crying all by herself, alone and ignored by anyone who would have passed by. Sakura couldn't help herself to tiptoe over with her bare feet and gently reach out to pet the beautiful red hair the little girl had, hushing in the softest tone she could do without startling the little one. Shish, shish. It's okay, sweetie. Why are you crying? The little girl spun her head in a fast motion, her red hair swishing gracefully to meet Sakura's gorgeous smile. UHN. Who are you? I didn't hear you. She tried to scramble to her feet to make a run for it, but Sakura's gentle hand tugged her wrist for her to hold still. Don't mind me. I'm not important. A pretty girl like you shouldn't cry without a reason, Sakura said. She sat on her shins and guided the girl to sit back down next to her. My name is Sakura, my dear. What is your name? The girl blushed to the deepest shade of red, redder than her own hair. KK. Kushina, ma'am. My name is Kushina. Kushina-chan, you may call me Sakura if you would like. Sakura reached into her obi and pulled out a clothed tissue with an Uchiwa fan painted on it, dabbing the girl's violet eyes with the cloth as she used her other hand to push loose strands out of her eyes. Mind if you tell me what is causing you to cry alone? Kushina's round-shaped head looked down to her open palms. She bit her lip lightly before speaking in a shy tone. At school, there were kids making fun of me, she whispered as she brushed her fingers through her super long hair with no interest. They make fun of my red hair and my head, saying I look like a tomato. I look like a freak of nature, Databane. Fresh tears fell from her bug eyes, having Sakura wipe them away gently. I don't know what is wrong with my red hair, but I hate it. The little girl went to an attack of sobs, her shoulders bouncing with every hiccup that escaped her lips. Sakura let her arm wrap around her small shoulders and pulled her into a warm hug, humming softly to let the little one cry to her heart's content. It took a few minutes for the redhead cutie's sobs to lighten as Sakura pulled back to look at her tear-stained cheeks. "Kushina-chan, do you see my hair?" Sakura asked as she tugged her own hair that was wavy against her cheeks. "It is pink, and I possess a baby-like face that could remind people of a cherry. People have always wondered if I was born within the roots of the sakura trees, or just a freak of nature as well. But the fact that I was so different from other people is what makes me so unique. I am a one-of-a-kind, Kushina-chan. I doubt you've seen anyone else with pink hair?" Kushina shook her head childlike. "No, I have not, Sakura-ni-chan." Sakura nodded. "I was very different, so people could not understand me so well. I felt alone and teased because no one liked how I looked. But then I began to do something I loved to do." "What is that?" "I loved to dance and sing. I also loved to tell stories and entertain people of all ages." Sakura smiled as she poked Kushina's button nose. "Once I began to show people what I could do, they began to like me and start to accept me. You see, Kushina-chan, people need to get to know you by the appearance of your talents, not by your weak flaws." Kushina's violet eyes began to sparkle with the words of wisdom the pink-haired beauty was telling her. Letting herself up from her lap and pumped a fist into the air, speaking in a new tone of courage. "Hi, I will show those cowards that I am not to be messed with just because I look like a tomato. I shall show my talent of fan dancing and tea ceremonies like a professional." She bounced around in her yukata with excitement. "And Kushina-chan," Sakura interrupted the dancing child, "in my opinion, you have very lovely hair and I adore your face." The said girl blushed 1,000 shades of red, squirming in her stance as she giggled at the nice comment. Thank you, Sakura-ni-chan," Kushina cooed by poking her own cheek. "I think you're very pretty, too. Nay, would you like to spend some time with me? I believe we will be great friends, my dear little girl," Sakura asked as she passed the cloth to the girl and held her hand to grasp onto it for a keepsake. "Will you like that?" "Yes," Kushina squealed as she clung to the fabric to her heart, bouncing with excitement. "I will be here after my schooling every day to meet up with you. I will tell you more about myself and you shall for me?" "I would love that, Kushina-chan." Naruto walked alongside Sasuke in the darkest neighborhood in town, scanning with his blue eyes of any pets from the homes that could possibly be outside to bark or hiss at the passing vampires. Even though no humans inside their homes would be woken up by the two simply walking around to observe the area, animals could easily give away that there was something abnormal in their environment. The blonde boy liked animals a lot, always begged Sasuke to get him a puppy as a child, even dogs like Naruto. It was only at night when the animals will turn on their nasty side and try to warn their owners that there are two intruders inside their homes just waiting to feast on needed blood. "So, Sasuke's cool voice reaches Naruto's keen ears. Sakura has told me that you've had that feeling sneaking up on you, no?" Naruto turned his head to look at his longtime friend, nodding silently as he faced forward to continue his job to check the perimeter. He had not spoke since he returned home from walking with Hinata, going up to his third-floor bedroom and shut himself in until Sasuke rapped on the door for him to come along with the night's hunting. He didn't even yell at Sasuke to leave him alone so he could be in silence, but rolled out of the bed when Sakura's voice came through the door, asking him politely to join Sasuke tonight. After what happened hours prior, Naruto wondered if Sasuke had any steam to let out. "You're not talking, Dobi," the black-haired man tried again. "That is not natural of you." Naruto stopped walking, shoving his hands in his orange sweatshirt as he looked up to the night sky. He waited until Sasuke stopped a few paces ahead of him to look back to speak for once. "I found her, Sasuke. She goes to our school." Sasuke's perfect mouth twitched a bit at the statement Naruto was claiming on the spot. Had he not learned anything about his temper? "Is that so?" He ran a hand through his hair, eyeing the squirrel that scampered across the empty street. "Isn't that interesting?" "Sasuke," Naruto looked at him with a serious look. "Sasuke, I don't get it at all. It's just a feeling, but for a human? Is that even normal nowadays with recent society?" He began to remember the graphic story of the tale on when humans turned against their fellow vampires, how Sakura would grip to the young boy's shoulder as she told this particular story with her eyes reading sadness. Haven't vampires changed their point of view to look into taking non-pureblood vampires as their companions? They have, Sasuke answered. But it does not stop the pain if the feeling is for a human. His eyes looked over his distressed friend, doing whatever it took not to smirk or laugh at his misery. That feeling would last until the human's dying breath. It may sound foolish to the younger generation, like you, but humans and vampires used to coexist peacefully. Naruto nodded. I know, but what am I going to do about the feeling when I pass by her again? I feel like I want to tell her everything, Datbeo. I want to protect her and make her mine someday. Who is she? That, my dear reader, left the blonde to go back into his silent mood. Failing to answer him and swung his arms in the air and run in circles in distress and anger. He knew he wasn't allowed to make any loud noises, so screaming would prove useless and another beating from the Uchiha. Leaving the only way to express his problem to the very uninterested vampire was to roll around like a hot-tempered child who was refused a toy to purchase. As expected, Sasuke rolled his eyes at the whining blonde, who was now rolling on the pavement and whimpering like a lost puppy. He turned his heels and began walking away from his only friend. Of course, I could always ask Sakura who she is, since she knows everything with your big mouth rambling juicy gossip with her. Nay, Naruto screamed, only to receive an expensive shoe to plant right onto his mouth, digging its toe down his throat. He made noises, but he wasn't choking. You little twit, Sasuke hissed very quietly. What are you trying to do? Wake the whole neighborhood so they can see us? Learn your place, you spoiling guppy. He pulled his foot out of his puffing cheeks and went back to walking. Fuck, I already know that it's Hyuga, so don't flip out. Then why did you tease me like that, huh? Naruto demanded as he scrambled to his feet. Yeah, you're baiting me to fuck up so you can beat me. You're such an asshole, Teme. I'm telling Sakura-chan what you're doing and she'll stop having with you for days. Huh, that is my plan, Teme. I can always have my way with her, Dobi, Sasuke said flatly as he glared over his shoulder. But don't you ever try to use Sakura against me. You'll only get yourself killed. He allowed the blonde to hop closer to his side as he kept walking down the deserted street. Nay, Sasuke. Were you like this before Sakura joined you? So protective? The icy man finally let a smirk expose on his lips. He looked to his friend and gave him the rare look that Naruto never sees without Sakura being in the room. If Sasuke was a different man, he would have even blushed. You will know how it feels soon enough, kid. Sasuke's expression showed Naruto his happiness. Sakura snuggled her futon pillow as she curled into a ball on the bed. Sighing softly as she sensed her boys arriving into the compound ground, bickering silently to human ears about who performed the best meal attacks of the night. Letting a smile grace her face as she checked the time to say 4:30 in the morning, the perfect curfew for vampires to begin to return home. She rolled to her back as she heard Naruto's swift feet enter his bedroom on the other side of the mansion, mattress padding crushing together as he settled himself in, throwing himself around a few times before he felt comfortable. Noisy little boy, Sakura giggled in her thoughts, sitting up as Sasuke opened the bedroom door and entered silently. How did it go, Sasuke-kun? Did you two talk? Sasuke crossed his arms and pulled his black shirt off, exposing his toned abs and biceps. He fell to his knees after tossing the shirt somewhere else and crawled his way over to her, inching his face closer to hers and grabbed her waist firmly and rolled her on top of him. I'm guessing it went well? Sakura pushed on with her fingers pressing against his heartbeat. She raised her head to look onto his lovely face, which was blank and had his eyes closed. Sasuke-kun. She smacked his chest rather hard, making him grunt in surprise. Yes, Sasuke groaned as he rubbed his face. Geez, can't a guy rest for a minute? I'm eating for two, you know. Even though it was literal, Sakura couldn't hold in her giggles as she pecked his cheek adoringly. Good, I was worried you two would go at each other's throats about the subject. Sakura purred against him, nipping his nose. She flipped her leg over so that she was sitting on his lower body and her hands wandered on his pale skin. Do you approve of Naruto's feelings for Hinata-chan? Sasuke took a moment to rub his eye with one hand. The other was trailing up Sakura's thigh, slowly slipping under her kimono. I really don't care who it is, as long as she keeps her mouth shut. The rest is on Naruto's head if he can't be responsible. I'm sure Naruto will do just fine. Sakura leaned down to press her forehead against his. He was taught by the great Uchiha on how to be a proper vampire, after all. She kissed his cheek softly as she trailed them down to his Adam's apple. Not to mention he is Minato's child. Sasuke's voice vibrated in his throat against her mouth. He slowly turned his head to the side and used a hand to brush through her soft pink hair as the other went higher into the kimono, pressing his lower body up against hers, letting a rough purr rumble in his chest. "Go on, baby." Sakura took no time to puncture his skin with her canines, sucking the gathered blood for her meal of the night, rewarding the man beneath her by pressing her body closer to his, feeding his inner emotions pour out with every minute it took for her to feed her half of the plate. Soft groans escaped Sasuke's lips as she finished, kissing the bite marks away gently before tackling her so he could be on top. He began giving simple loving love bites on her neck, inching lower and lower as he came in contact with her kimono. "You sure you're not tired, Sasuke-kun?" Sakura smirked teasingly at the Uchiha's sudden actions. "Rest later." With that, Sasuke continued with his kisses as he ripped her kimono wide open. Hinata looked up to the iron gates with wide eyes, gulping thickly as she saw the sculptures of gargoyles and other monstrous creatures that crawled out of the brick wall next to the iron gates that guarded the Uchiha estate. She didn't know how to properly tell if she should just open the gate, or press some kind of button. Possibly a bird to carry on a message for her. Silly girl. She brushed her bangs away from her eyes and inhaled a large gulp of oxygen. "Hello? Anyone home?" She called out as loud as she could, feeling absolutely foolish if someone was to see her screaming into the supposedly haunted grounds. She wondered if they lived next door instead of this address, but there was no actual written address on the paper. Only a detailed drawing in pen that held detailed instructions on how to get here with a X at the end. "Sakura-chan, I'm here." Hinata waited for a very long minute, tapping her foot gently to pass the time before sighing sadly. She concluded that she got the wrong house and should best go home. She told the maids she would be home later tonight, so they didn't need to make lunch for her and can enjoy a break. She folded the instructions carefully and slipped it back into her purple purse that was decorated with stitching of a butterfly and blue stars to frame it. She turned her body around and began to walk away with only one step taken. "Nay, Hinata-chan, you're right on time." A cheerful voice came from behind her, making her spin around with a hand on her chest to see Sakura standing on the other side of the gate. "I'm sorry if I made you wait for a long while. I was looking for my other sandal. Naruto was hiding from me." She winked cutely as she pushed the gate open with both hands. Hinata noticed that Sakura was wearing a traditional kimono, the ones she would see at traditional Japanese weddings of her father's closest friends and rarely at festivals that were held here in town. It was maroon-ish red with white designs of cherry blossom petals dancing across her fabric, having a black obi with red stitching supported all together and matching black sandals. Hinata was amazed how professional Sakura looked on a Saturday, as if she was an honored guest back in time, making her cheeks blush deep red. "Oh, I feel so underdressed, Sakura," Hinata whined nervously while fidgeting with her index fingers. "You look very pretty." Sakura was confused. "What do you mean, dear? You're dressed like a real kimono girl. I'm wearing nothing of the sort except a t-shirt and a skirt." "I feel so silly," Hinata mumbled. "Oh, this?" Sakura tugged at her own sleeve, giggling lightly as she pinched her clothes. "I wear this on a daily basis, Hinata-chan. It's what I wear after school out of my school uniform, cha. You don't have to feel underdressed. I dress like this all the time." She took hold of Hinata's hand and began to pull her past the gate, letting her look around the gargoyles before entering the lion's den. All Hinata would see when she passed the gate was nothing but trees and green plants all over the place. She felt like she was inside a forest in the middle of nowhere. Hinata jumped when Sakura closed the gate, causing a creaky slam when she locked it up with a giant, rusty key. It probably looked old enough to be in a museum, or something. She watched as Sakura tucked it into her obi and began walking casually, yet gracefully, down the dirt path that was set in between the valley of trees, humming a tune that Hinata wasn't too familiar with. So, Hinata fumbled with her fingers again, watching how Sakura walked in a beautiful way. "Is Naruto-kun here?" Sakura's nose raised slightly at the name, slowly turning her head to show her bright eyes and a perky smile. "Oh yes. He hasn't gone anywhere since last night. He's hanging out with Sasuke-kun in the woods behind the mansion." She beckoned Hinata to come closer. "Don't worry, sweetie. I'm not going to bite you. Hinata was right next to her, still looking all around. Do you ever get lost in here? It seems big, you know? She grasped Sakura's soft hand and suddenly felt a gust of wind. Hair covered her eyes before she could ask once more. Doesn't it? No, not really, Sakura chirped as they both entered the compound. Aisles of small homes and little shacks remained to look good as new after many years, shocking Hinata as she looked at the decorations of pots with colorful flowers to brighten the empty streets. I've been decorating here and there, so I tend to memorize the area pretty quickly. Sasuke knows more of the property and Naruto seems to be getting used to it. I don't wander out of the neighborhood, you could say. Oh, why not? Hinata asked with confidence. It was easier to ask Sakura questions without the Uchiha with the creepy stare. Sakura had a long pause before answering in a somewhat sad voice. I don't like being alone on the property's forest. It makes me feel upset. She suddenly tucked her hands into her sleeves, looking straight ahead as Hinata uncovered her eyes and scurried after to follow the pink-haired girl. I really didn't live an easy life. Hinata's voice cracked. I'm sorry about that, Sakura-chan. I didn't. It happened a long time ago, dear. Sakura donned a bright smile to her. It is nothing for you to apologize for. Truthfully, I am pretty thankful that you're kind enough to ask about myself. Hinata's lips twitched up to a shy smile. Okay, Sakura-chan. Here. Sakura stuck out her right hand and held it out in front of her friend. Her eyes softened to the degree of creating hearts to flutter with wings, as what Hinata did quickly. Take my hand, Hinata-chan. Hinata took hold of Sakura's soft hand, gently grasping it, and was pushed by a harsh gust of wind once more. Hair flipping to block her eyesight as she nearly tumbled over if it wasn't for Sakura's arm suddenly snaking over her shoulder. She gasped as she inhaled the earthy oxygen, pressing her whole body against her friend in fear of a storm that would take place. You okay, Hinata? She opened her eyes to find a door in front of her. The color of coal with doorknockers in the shape of roaring lions, giant fangs holding the knobs. The actual doorknobs were silver veins that probably required all your strength to open it, designings of silver leaves and roots that embedded onto the door itself. The door's frame was a gold color of wood and it was brick that surrounded the rest. A mansion with beautiful windows to hold the door up properly. She remembered before of looking at the wonderful little houses and now, there was this big damn mansion right in front of her. Welcome home. Sakura's angelic voice perked her ears as she pushed both doors open with both small hands. Hinata was instantly pulled into the mansion by her pink-haired friend, suddenly in a whole new world that she never knew existed. Naruto carefully balanced himself on a thin branch of a tall oak tree, watching as birds flew just above his head as he pulled a strip of cloth from the leaves. He smiled like a kid at Christmas when he was able to hold the whole strip in his grasp and add it to the collection of other stripped cloths into his baggy pocket. Your training is proving pointless, Sasuke. Naruto yelled freely from the top of the tree. I only have 3 more to go, Datbeo. Ha! He leapt off the branch, falling in a neutral expression before landing on his heels without worry. He shook his hips to echo the sound of clothes colliding in his pants, looking like a shirtless fool. There are actually no more strips for you to search for, Naruto. Your next test is to get cloths from an enemy, a cool voice echoed within the forest, making Naruto stop with his silly dance. And I don't have them. Then who the foo? The blonde slowly swallowed when he actually thought what the mean Uchiha said. His face bursting red with frustration as he stomped his bare foot on the thorny grass. You asshole. I'm not attacking Sakura-chan to pass your fucking test. Birds literally flew from the trees and little creatures scurried into their dens, running away from the predator that was miles upon miles from them, but it didn't matter. If you say so. The dark figure was laying against a low branch of a tree behind Naruto. If you want to fail to protect Hyuga when the time comes, be my guest. No, I'm not giving up. Naruto growled animalistic, pointing at his best friend. I know that Hinata is here today for Sakura-chan's tea party, and I'm not going to ruin it just to get cloths. Then how would you like to tell Hyuga of what you truly are? Sasuke asked with a raised bow. How did you do it? Back when I found Sakura. The Uchiha smirked mockingly, is something I will tell my children's children, not for an idiot to find out and tell all his buddies. Ass, Naruto snarled, like you'll ever be able to have. The Uchiha's eyes bled red with his signature commas swirling, just tempting the blonde to go on. Naruto saw his glare and snorted, walking on twigs and thorn. "I'll get your fucking cloths, you emo douchebag." His mutters made the dark man relax and rest his head back. "I'll tell Sakura-chan how abusive you are. You just wait, kid," Sasuke said calmly with Naruto already far away. "I may come off as a hard teacher. But, if I ask Sakura to help me teach you how to protect." Naruto listened to the last words, cementing them into his brain as he plotted what was coming to him, as well as the human girl who was now inside the Uchiha mansion. "She will do whatever it takes to make you win in the real world." "Sakura," Sasuke whispered against her bare back, tracing his large hands on her spine, "I need you to help Naruto learn how to win in a fight." His girl raised her pretty head off of the futon pillow, her sparkling jades glancing at him with a confused expression. Her doll-like lips parted as she asked below a whisper, "Why, Sasuke-kun?" Sasuke crawled up to place his head facing hers, wrapping his arms around her skinny waist. If he wants to protect Hyuga, he needs to learn how to spring into action when they both least expect it. His thumb traced her lower lip gently. If Naruto wants to know how to become a protective soulmate, whether she's still human or not, he must fight against in the least common situations. Sakura stared at Sasuke when she placed her hands on his warm, bare chest. "But, Sasuke-kun, Hinata-chan is my friend. I don't want to scare her," she whimpered lightly as she closed her eyes sadly. "As much as I'd like to help Naruto. Why not when Hinata-chan finds out? So then I wouldn't become so scary. Because Hinata wasn't born to know the existence of vampires. No one is anymore, my darling," Sasuke said as he cupped her face, which was now on the verge of tears. "You don't want Hyuga to struggle like you did, do you?" Sakura exhaled at his warm touch, snuggling her way closer to his body and rest her head in the crook of his neck. "No, I don't wish for that to happen." A single tear fell down the edge of her eye, dripping onto her pillow. "I don't wish to become violent either. It will be all right. It's part of his test," Sasuke soothed her gently. He showed the unknown emotions that others would not see from this particular man. His touches more gentle and loving as he spoke with a soothing tone that many would think was like a plague to him. He hugged her little pale body close to him, kissing the top of her head repeatedly with gentleness. Hyuga will forgive her friend as well. Naruto will forgive his elder sister. Sakura's bare body formed to be comforted by her husband. She nipped his shoulder before kissing his neck slowly, sending Sasuke into his lusty frenzy within his thoughts. But, for the sake of their conversation, he kept the contact to gentle touches and kisses. "You will do it in the morning," Sasuke announced. "When you first sense Naruto's presence a mile away from the mansion, you will begin to let loose." He pulled her face to look into his dark, yet so comforting eyes. "Everything will be just fine, Sakura." "Yes, Sasuke-kun." The sad woman closed her eyes as she felt his lips press against her own. She nestled herself against his beautiful body, savoring the time they had until she had to force herself to starve for tomorrow's test for her little boy. "Sakura," Sasuke whispered in such a loving tone, "I love you so much." "MN," Sakura whimpered as she tangled her limbs with his. "I love you, Sasuke-kun." As Sakura poured Hinata's cup in the dining hall, traditional Japanese themed with pillowed cushions for seats, arranged around a very long table, she remembered how Sasuke reassured her before departing with Naruto into the woods on how he will be watching her in case things became too violent. She always held him to his word, since he never broke any promises since they had met. She felt somewhat better about what was going to happen in the matter of minutes. "Oh, they all look so yummy," Hinata cooed shyly as she gazed onto the many cake that decorated the table, sitting on special dishes that Sakura dug out of the ground, seriously out of the ground, and washed them perfectly to serve as cake plates. She made many little cakes, treats, petite fours, crepes and many other little baked goods, all decorated with delicate designs of frosting and silverware that was by 2 plates for the 2 ladies. Hinata was really getting a kick out of Sakura's secret talent of decorating cakes. "And you did this all in the morning?" "I am the master of multitasking," Sakura winked, causing her to blush madly to hold her cheeks as she saw the elegant teapot pouring the yummy-smelling tea into the tiny cup. "It's not too hard. I could teach you sometime, if you wish to have me as a teacher." "I'd love that," Hinata chirped. Sakura hummed as she lifted the cup into her hands. Her senses told her that Naruto was now nearly a mile away from the mansion. Sasuke was already here. Her ears heard his soothing whispers to begin. She held the cup out professionally to Hinata. "Here you go, Hinata-chan. Arigato." Hinata smiled her sweet smile as she reached for the cup. The sound of her heartbeat fluttering was already making Sakura swallow with struggle, not that she showed it, as their fingers touched to exchange the cup. Sakura's nail pricked Hinata's middle finger, causing a single drop of blood, the size of a pin's tip, to ooze out of the little cut. Hinata, the sensitive human that she was, felt the tension of the poke, and dropped the teacup to the carpet, spilling to stain the red rug. "Sakura-chan, I'm so sorry." Hinata sputtered thickly, thinking it was all her own fault. Looking at the pale hand that stayed put of her dear friend, still as stone as her head was bowed in a sickly manner. Her expression changed to worry. "Sakura-chan, are you Aoi?" She was unable to finish as she gasped in shock as Sakura's head tilted up to reveal her once jade eyes to be black beads. Her pale features seemed to be more sickly to Hinata's opinion. Her outstretched slowly shift the digits into a claw-like motion as she opened her mouth. "Hinata-chan." A ghost-like voice came from the lips, exposing canine fangs that were sharp to the point. "Hinata-chan, I'm sorry for what I am about to do, sweetie." With that, Sakura's claw grasped Hinata's t-shirt and launched their bodies out of the room, sending Hinata's eyesight to spin as her indoor scenery changed to the outdoor world of green grass and trees. When she finally sought out the colors of flowers in patches of gardens, she suddenly realized that Sakura's grip was tight on her waist, nearly causing pain on her muscles. "Sakura!" Hinata screamed loudly at the top of her lungs, trying to let it echo across the estate to any passing people to hear her scream. Tears began to swell in her pale eyes as she tried to pull away from this monster. "I'm not going to hurt you, Hinata-chan." Sakura's angelic voice stunned her struggle. "I need you to hold still for me." She spun around and placed her softly on the ground. Her face expression looked as if she was in pain when Hinata got a good look of her scary features. Her pale hand touched her cheek, freezing Hinata on the spot as Sakura tried so hard to smile. "Everything will be answered in the..." A large gust of wind once again pushed Hinata to the side, watching Sakura's body fly into the air with another anatomy pushing her away by force. She recognized quickly, because of the blonde hair, that it was Naruto digging his fist into Sakura's stomach. She felt her whole body go numb as she watched Sakura return the sudden attack by guiding her leg over her head and aim onto Naruto's skull, sending him to drop into the earth and create a large boom with dirt flying everywhere. Hinata closed her eyes tight as she cried out in fear. Her sobs reached the body that was covered by a foot of dirt, his eyes opening quickly as a tiny hand darted under and grabbed his ankle. "I'm sorry, Naruto." Sakura's soft voice passed by him as she flung him across the garden, landing on the trunk of a recently chopped down oak tree. Her sweet voice suddenly changed to a icy and eerie screech, "Don't fail me now." Hinata's eyes darted to Naruto, who quickly jumped off the trunk as if nothing happened. His muscled chest ripped in anger as a vein popped in his temple. His teeth was bared to show sharp canines that was the size of her pinky finger, easily spotted from the distance between them as Sakura's body swiftly made its way behind her, picking her up with surprisingly gentle care as she scooped her into her arms. She gazed into the beady eyes of her captive as they stared at Naruto in a way that said she was tempting him to come at her. "Sakura-chan." Naruto's growl sent a shiver down Hinata's spine, sending a sob from her lips. "Let Hinata go right now." "I don't want to do this." Sakura's eerie voice felt like ice. "Do it." "No, I don't want to hurt." He took a step as Sakura dropped her head to Hinata's lovely neck. He halted instantly at her sudden move and met Hinata's eyes for the first time. "Hinata, if you won't do what must be done," Sakura whispered against Hinata's skin, "then you failed to protect her." With that statement said, Hinata caught a glimpse of Sakura's mouth opening as wide as she could against her neck. Hinata's cry was as loud as the human eardrum could take it as she felt Sakura's cold tongue lick her warm skin of her neck. "Please, oh God, please don't." Sakura closed her eyes with a soft smile on her face, feeling the blade of the knife digging into her neck as Naruto continued to push the utensil deeper into her skin. She felt Hinata get yanked out of her arm, sensing the two moving away at an inhuman speed into the expanding forest. "Good boy, Naruto," Sakura's thoughts said in a cheerful tone. I am so proud of you. She dropped to her knees and coughed up a mouthful of black liquid. The thick element dripped off her lips to her chin, her vampire blood feeling so chilly against her skin. It was now that she flipped her hand out of her kimono sleeve, reaching to her neck and pulled the knife out of her flesh, hearing the sound of the metal removing from her torn skin. There was no pain whatsoever in what Naruto has done to the pink-haired vampire, but she could feel it. She didn't like it when things pierced her hard skin, but she was so happy that her blonde friend took the extra mile to physically attack her to save Hinata from her razor-sharp teeth. Not like Sakura was going to bite Hinata anyhow. Sakura. The voice of Sasuke whispered by her side. She opened her eyes to see him looking down to her with so much love in his eyes. His expression was blank of course, but his eyes always read more than his looks. Are you alright? She tossed the knife down, sitting to her shins as she let him kneel to her height and examine the wound that was now healing in a rapid pace. Yes. Sasuke-kun, he did a very nice job. She looked into his eyes with a sparkle. I'm very proud of him. Sasuke let a small smirk grace his lips when there was no trace of anything on her flower neck. So am I, my dear. He kissed her head softly as she wrapped her arms around him, begging him to pick her up like a little kid. Did you make a mess at all inside? She giggled when Sasuke lifted her whole body into his hold. I spilled tea, but it will be alright. I can clean it up. She snuggled against him as he carried her into the mansion, hearing the echo of Naruto's feet landing at every step of the forest's floor. Be a good boy, Naruto, Sakura thought joyfully. Naruto was running like he has never ran in his life. Well, he has ran like he never had. Once when he was human and Sasuke claimed that he was out of shape and so the black-haired man chased the teenaged boy around an old village until his muscles formed properly. Or that one time when Sakura found him stashing naughty magazines when he was 13 and chased him to the mountains in the middle of winter. Without any winter clothing, as he remembered. But now, with something in his arms as a vampire, he was running as if her life depended on it. He knew that Sakura was never going to bite Hinata. He knew that Sakura wasn't capable of biting anyone besides Sasuke. But the sight of any kind of creature, even the woman he thought he loved for years, was touching her fangs to her fragile skin made him go into a murderous frenzy. Making him flip out his Swiss Army knife and stab the innocent vampiress, take Hinata into his arms and run into the forest that would go on forever to the human's perspective. He wanted to apologize to Sakura, really. But, once he sensed Sasuke take her into the mansion, he didn't bother going back. He literally felt like killing the Uchiha for putting Sakura through the mess of threatening Naruto and using Hinata as bait. Once he felt like he was done running off his anger, he slowed his pace down to a human speed of running, which really felt like walking to the young blonde. He gazed down to see Hinata's eyes big and wide, looking straight at him for probably the whole damn time. He finally halted and settled Hinata's light body on a low tree branch of a oak tree, probably miles upon miles from the mansion at this point. It took Hinata a minute to jerk her shoulders upward when he stepped back. Naruto's lips pierced to the side. He didn't like this silence that was going on. Hinata, Naruto mumbled while rubbing the back of his head. He noticed her body tensing at the sound of his warm voice. Hinata, I can explain. His tanned face was smacked with a purple sneaker, right on his whiskered cheek and startled him to paw at the shoe like a feline. Don't hurt me. Hinata's voice was the highest pitch that Naruto has ever heard since they met 2 days prior. Looking at her scramble behind the tree branch, he set her on and holding a sharp twig in front of her for defense. Don't bite me. I don't taste good. My blood tastes like French fries. Naruto's face was blank with confusion in his blue eyes, watching as the blue-haired beauty swing the stick and telling him to back away from her. If the situation was for a game he would have been playing with Hinata, he would laugh his childish laugh and tickle her. Oh, how Sakura would jab his ear with her fan for that idea. After a few moments of watching Hinata scream at him, he knelt down and picked up her pretty shoe, and began taking slow steps towards the panicked girl. No, I said stay away, don't make me hurt you. Hinata cried while trembling at her legs. This stick is sharp, you know. Naruto stopped a foot away from her, the twig she was holding poking his bare chest as he graciously held out the purple shoe to the frightened girl. Hinata, please listen to me. Hinata pushed harder on the stick to his chest, not bothering the boy at all. I will not hurt you, Hinata. She whimpered as he set the shoe on the branch. I could never hurt you, Hinata. Hinata looked up to his blue eyes, startled to see the certain emotions that his pretty eyes said to her. I only want to protect the person who I am destined for. Protection, comfort, safety. You can trust me. Love. Hinata, come here. A sweet female voice echoed in the hallway as the little girl wandered with awe, admiring all the painting the hallways held in the lonely-looking wing. Come here, darling. Hinata entered the room at the end of the hallway, entering with a little wobble to her stance as she made her way to her mother who sat on the ground in front of a large canvas that was blank. Hinata's small hand reached out to touch her mother's long blue hair, admiring how soft it felt on her fingers. She too, in her own hopes, that her dream of having long hair like her will happen just like this. Hinata. Her mother turned to face her, stroking her pink cheek with a sweet smile. Darling, what should I paint for your room? The little girl tilted her head to the side in confusion. Mommy is going to paint me a present? The beautiful woman nodded. What would be the symbol of Hinata, I wonder? How do you want to be taken by your future husband? Hinata knew her mother's secret language. She always told riddles to test her daughter's imagination, asking what she would like to wear for her wedding and what she would like to eat for her last meal. The cheeky child smiled as she watched her mom pick up a light pencil, ready to take her request. I want to be taken as a butterfly, Mommy, Hinata cooed as she hugged her mother's silked arm. A butterfly that is so beautiful to the man's eye. I will be the most prettiest colored thing he has ever seen. I will be protected and cared for with all his heart. She watched with her big eyes as her mother's swift hand began to sketch the body of the insect. What would this butterfly become for this man, darling? Hinata took a moment to think. I will be touched gently by his warm hands, as he guides me into the real world. He will kiss my wings very gently and keep me safe and warm at night when I am scared. Hinata watched as her mother quickly drew the large, frilly wings. I will be someone he wants to keep forever and ever, like you and Daddy. The pale woman smiled wide at the statement, kissing her plump cheek as she opened a bamboo box that held her watercolored paint. That is very wonderful, darling. You will be his treasure for sure. Mommy, when will I find him? Hinata asked as she pointed out the light blue and lavender colors for the wings. She watched her mother's pupils change shape by magic. Beautiful designs of shapes lingered within the pupils of her shining eyes. He will find you when you are ready to be found, my sweetest butterfly. You will not know it until your destiny is proven in front of your eyes. Hinata never knew her destiny, her mother never said, but she always took her mother's words to heart. She thought her mother was an angel that told the future sometimes. As she grew up, she figured her mother was special in an odd way. She once would ask her father about her riddles, and his only reply was that she was open-minded to the world. She never thought she would find her destined man to protect her wings. Hinata and Naruto sat on the forest's carpet, across from each other, as Naruto tied Hinata's laces back on her little foot. He was gentle as he set her foot back down on the ground and scooted his rear a few paces back to give her space. He had his usual smile on his face, the one where you could see all of his teeth. There, all done. Naruto nodded once as he settled his distance away from her. You know, I did feel that shoe on my face. Good aim. Arigato. Hinata mumbled, staring at the blonde as he rubbed the back of his head once more. So, she trailed off instantly when their gazes met, her cheeks turning red and stiff in her shoulders. You can ask anything you want. I'm not gonna turn down anything you're curious about. Naruto's voice was so reassuring to her nerves. If it will make you feel better, I'd be happy to answer anything, Datbeo. Of course, as every girl would ask a vampire. So, you're an actual vampire? Naruto nodded. Yup, I am a vampire. Hinata's eyes narrowed curiously. But, vampires drink blood. As a vampire, I drink blood. She felt her body lean back a bit as he said it so casually. But, as you would think, I don't kill people to fill my thirst. I take a pint from every human I bite. She relaxed as he chuckled kindly. So, how old? Hinata asked next. I'm over 90, I think. I lost count after my 45th birthday, Naruto pouted. I was born in October of 1920s, I know that. But I don't know my actual birth date. Where were you born? Kyoto, Naruto sighed dreamily. My mother was born and raised there, and also met my father. They got married there, too, and had me born in a hospital hall. We didn't have proper hospitals back then, so it was like a one-story building with many rooms, you know? But I lived in a really old Japanese house by the time my parents passed away. His eyes suddenly went a little dim with sadness. They were killed by vampires that weren't meant into the Kyoto territory. Sakura-chan was able to save me, but my parents passed on before she could save them. Hinata's eyebrows furrowed. I'm sorry. Don't be, Hinata. Naruto perked his cheeky smile. It's good to ask questions. What else would you like to know? Her hand went up to her neck, lightly touching the area where Sakura's lips barely touched her skin with those razor-sharp teeth. Anyo. What Sakura-chan tried to do back there, what was she? Naruto sighed. That was part of my test Sasuke was giving me, he said in a low voice of slight anger. I have been doing tests since I have been turned to prove to Sasuke that I am not dependent on anyone, or loyal for that matter. What do you mean? Vampires have two different classes, Naruto said as he held up both of his index fingers. One is the purebloods, a vampire race that was born as a vampire and is considered royalty in this society. The other is changes, the vampire race when a human is changed into a vampire. Purebloods used to be a very large family, but they're mostly wiped out. Hinata tilted her head to the side to let him continue. Sasuke's family is the only pureblood royalty I'm aware of, dating back to ancient times for sure. Many centuries ago, way before I was born, they were killed here on this property. I don't know the story, but I could ask Sasuke if you would like. It's okay, and Naruto-kun, her head tilted down. So, you're a change and Sakura-chan is a pureblood? No, Sakura-chan is broken. Naruto bit on his last word. Sakura-chan was changed. She used to be human, but something went wrong with the transformation. The person who did it did something to her that causes her problems. Huh? Changes and purebloods both are capable to reproduce. Sakura-chan is sterile and is more of a stronger breed of a vampire. She is more strong than purebloods and has this special power to heal wounds on herself and others if she wishes it. She is also unable to age at her own wish, so her blood is different by far. You're not able to kill Sakura-chan as easily as you could with other species, Naruto explained with deep thoughts. That is something you would have to ask Sakura-chan yourself. Hinata's eyes widened. Naruto noticed this quickly and waved his hand. She's not going to hurt you. She was just making me spring into action. She would have never bit you, Hinata. Sakura-chan doesn't like biting. Then why did she scare me like that? Sakura-chan was letting me know the pain of what it's like when people you care about are in danger, Naruto answered in a shy voice. Most likely the people you love is what causes vampires to do whatever it takes to save them. People you love? Hinata repeated slowly. Aha. This may sound really foolish to you, Hinata, but there is a thing that vampires get. It's a feeling that causes them to look for their destined one, as in their soulmate. It's a really old tradition that has been going on with vampires and humans alike. He looked up to the sky and did his best not to feel shy. Humans feel it, too. But it's different. I strongly believe that you are my soulmate, Hinata. The deep tint of pink reached his whiskered cheeks, suddenly unable to look at the blue-haired girl. It may sound foolish, but you're the only one I would take my life for to make sure you're safe and happy, Datbeo. The one who will protect your fragile wings will be the one who finds you first, darling. Hinata's sweet mother's voice reached her mind in a soothing manner. He will find you first and will always protect you, baby girl. If you want to leave, I wouldn't blame you. Just don't tell anyone what we really are, okay? We're not doing anything wrong, we just want to live side by side. Naruto rubbed his temple slowly. We won't bother you Anym. I trust you, Naruto-kun. Naruto's head literally snapped to look at the young woman, looking at her with wide eyes of surprise as a small smile touched her pretty lips, her face glowing right in front of the vampire blonde. He could have blushed madly by her sweet expression and just hug her, but there was still the aftershock of realizing that your new friend is a blood-sucking creature of the night. Oh good. Naruto forced a nervous smile. Any other questions you have? The girl's soft eyes twinkled with curiosity as she reminded herself of the previous events that happened to her. Sakura-chan doesn't bite anyone? How does she feed? Naruto let his nervous smile turn confident with strength. Why not ask her yourself? I'm sure Sakura-chan wants to apologize for scaring you. The poor girl's eyes widened at the thought of going back to the mansion that was filled with vampires that feed on human blood. Naruto led Hinata in by having her arm wrapped to his elbows as he guided her into the main hallroom, where they found Sasuke sitting in a very tall chair or throne, with Sakura sitting elegantly on his lap. Hinata noticed how her maroon-ish kimono had splotches of black stains around the collar, reminding herself that Sakura's blood was different compared to Naruto and Sasuke's when she asked the blonde boy on the walk back of what was the difference. He explained what he exactly did to Sakura's skin to get her in his arms. He wasn't happy with the reaction of Hinata starting to tear up in her lavender eyes, but was quick to remind her of Sakura's special talent of healing any wound. He met the gaze of the dark-haired vampire, narrowing his blue eyes into angry slits of the man's plan to trouble him and two of the girls present in the room. Naruto was replied with the look of Sasuke's eyes flashing to crimson for a mere second, warning the blonde boy that this was needed and not to test his way of teaching him. Naruto, Sakura's angelic voice echoed the room as she pulled her hand out of her kimono sleeve, holding two strips of cloth within her thin fingers. You did a very good job protecting Hinata-chan. She tossed the thin strip when they made a few feet away from them. Naruto caught the strips with his free hand and shoved it into his pockets. Arigato. And Hinata-chan. Hinata looked in awe of wonder as she saw her friend's once scary, black and beady eyes that are now back to the sparkling jades. Hinata-chan, I am sorry for the actions I caused to scare you. It is okay, Sakura-chan. I'm alright now. Hinata waved her hands around nervously, making the vampire woman smile sweetly. Sakura. Sasuke gripped Sakura's thin waist as he leaned his face to her neck, pressing his lips onto her healed skin. Why don't you take Hyuga back into the dining hall and continue the tea party she originally came here for? Hi, Sakura chirped as she let Sasuke carry her off of his lap onto the floor, scurrying barefoot to grasp Hinata's hand and interlock her fingers. I cleaned the spill, so I shall pour you another cup of mint tea. You have yet to try my cake as well. She went at a human speed for the sensitive mortal to lead her out of the room and shut the large doors. Uzumaki Naruto has not left his gaze at the Uchiha. A slight spark of anger still lingered visibly in his blue orbs. He was just waiting for the Ice Cube man to start speaking. Naruto, you made the move to attempt to kill Sakura by trying to disconnect the spine of her neck, Sasuke said in a cool voice as he leaned back on the throne and tapped his fingers on the armrest. You made a very smart move, and therefore I shall not teach you any longer as you have Hyuga by your side and you will protect her. Naruto still hasn't said a word. Although, I must confess my feelings every once in a while. I find it very interesting on how Hyuga is taking the truth so well. Care to assist me on that idea, Naruto? Sasuke halted his drumming of his fingers as he watched Naruto settle on the floor and a sitting position. The kind of position when a king would be confronted with his own son and not a student. Not afraid of the higher rank. Teme, I want to talk to you. Hyuga Hinata took large sips of the mint tea, sighing internally of the tingling of her tongue as the warm liquid went down her throat. She watched as Sakura poured her own cup and took little elegant sips, sitting on her shins like a real Japanese kimono girl that she read in books, letting her curiosity get the best of her as jade orbs went to meet her gaze straight away. Sorry, Hinata stammered as she looked at her cup instead. Naruto has said why you're old? Sakura set her little cup onto the table, keeping her eyes on the mortal sweetheart that she has grown to like the friendship of the two. Hinata-chan, you do not have to be nervous around me. I am not as scary as Sasuke-kun, am I? No. I like you very much. I'm just confused about how, I don't know what, but I don't. You're wondering how I was when I was human, are you not? Sakura giggled, of how I was in my mortal life before I was changed. Sorta. Hinata blushed deeply with embarrassment. I was curious on why Naruto-kun didn't tell me. My life was not very simple, from the era that I am from, Sakura said with a soft expression, slowly helping Hinata's speeding heart. I was sold by my parents to an okiya, which is a housing for geisha women, when I was only a baby. They were very poor and were desperate to make money to survive the winter that year. A geisha house? Hinata thought openly. Sakura nodded softly, smiling a little bit bigger. It was a time when geishas were the only entertainment for the higher ranks. If you wish, I can tell you my story, Hinata-chan. Will be it okay? My story is not common, nor is it rare, Sakura said as she settled her hands on her lap. My story is the only one anyone could hear and never find anything close to be familiarity with it. It would always be nice for someone to hear it once in a great while of my immortal life. Oh, I would like to hear it then, Sakura-chan. Hinata was now excited for the tale to be told by the young-looking woman. Very well.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.